everybody, and welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm Tim Dennis. Have a really interesting show for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about redemption today. Redemption, and if it's possible when it comes to nature versus nurture. And I'll tell you a little bit about what I mean by that when we talk about this book today. The book we're talking about is The Decision to Kill, a true crime story of a teenage killer and the mother who loved him. The book is written by Leslie Ghiglieri. I'll get that right by the end of this show. It's a wonderful name, and I'll get that right by the time we get to the end of the show. It was a fascinating read this weekend, as it kind of hit home with me a little bit. Has to do with a young man in the year 1986 by the name of Dwayne. And we'll talk to Leslie a little bit about the story and how Dwayne does an awful thing that eventually lands him in jail, and he has to deal with what we now, I believe, would say is a bit of a personality disorder, to put it mildly. But we'll get the official diagnosis here when we talk to Leslie. I want to just kind of stop real quick and let people know that when we were first starting True Crime Tuesday, we were on AM 1130 on Twin Cities News Talk. And one of the program directors on Twin Cities News Talk, Andrew Lee, was one of our biggest supporters when we were on AM 1130. Unfortunately, over the weekend, Andrew passed away. And we want to dedicate today's show to Andrew Lee, who was one of the program directors when he first saw that we were on air on AM 1130. He said, why exactly are you on our air? We were a paranormal show with a true crime component, and didn't understand why we were on his air and didn't get it, and was wondering why we were on at that time of night from 9 to midnight, Monday through Friday. And then thought, well, do you actually think you're beating Dr. Laura? Do you actually think you're beating any of these other big time radio shows? And sure enough, when he opened up his ratings on the computer there and opened it up for both of us to look at, there we were beating the program in front of us, which was Dr. Laura, and we were beating her handily. So he was surprised and shocked when he first came into his job to see that, yes, we were beating the programming that was on AM 1130. And then he was made an instant believer. He didn't doubt the numbers that were there. As far as news talk went, he knew that at that point, paranormal programming, true crime programming could even beat news talk programming. And Andrew was a firm believer. And for that, having that open mind and having that belief and then getting firmly behind us was one of his great attributes. Not only that, but just having a warm smile and having a friendly word and getting behind you was one of the great things about Andrew Lee. So rest in peace, Andrew. We know that there'll be a radio station on the other side for you to program, and they'll be looking forward to having you there to provide some laughs and for you to just be there for other people on the other side, because your work is not done, my friend. And we'll be happy to see you when we get over there. Let's continue on with our program now. The Decision to Kill is the name of the book, a true crime story of a teenage killer and the mother who loves him. Let's bring in at this point our author and our guest, Leslie Ghiglieri. Leslie, hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tim. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you for being here. Let's get to know you a little bit first before we launch into the book. Tell us a little bit first about you and about how you got into the true crime genre and how you got into, writing about true crime.
Well, this particular book is my first book, so I don't have a long history as an author. And the reason I came to write this book is a friend of mine, her name's Cheri, and I had met her back in 1986 and lived a few miles from her, got to be pretty good friends, and then we moved out of the area, and I didn't see her too often. But in 2016, I had a chance to be at her house, and she told me that she had always had a desire to have her story told. And what I knew about Cheri that had happened during the time that I wasn't in contact with her, her son had murdered her husband. And she continued on in a relationship with him of sorts for a number of years. And she felt that that story from the time that the murder took place and throughout the number of years later, that she had a story to tell that she felt other people would benefit by, but she had never had a way of documenting it. So at that point, she asked me if I would be willing to write the story for her and write the book. And that started our journey together.
And an interesting journey at that. You know, as I went through the book this past weekend, there are a lot of things in this book that kind of surprised me, kind of shocked me. You know, the book really takes place in the 70s and into the early to mid 80s, and really in a time where I came of age too. So I can relate to a lot of things in the book in the time where Dwayne, who's Cheri's son, came up. And I thought to myself, well, you know, a lot of these memories I kind of remember. I kind of remember the times where Dwayne grew up. And to me, a lot of the things that Dwayne may look at as an affront to him really aren't that unusual. I mean, it kind of seems like he had led a charmed life.
Well, in a lot of ways, sure, but teenagers often think at a certain time in their life that it's not so charmed. They want things to be different. They want to do things their own way, make their own decisions. And of course, most of us are familiar with the conflict that comes during those years, and the parents have their idea of what's appropriate, and Dwayne had his idea. And the problem with that situation was that drugs ended up becoming involved in Dwayne's life, and that exacerbated already a difficult situation.
Before we get into the story too much here, I know you had said, even though this was really your first delving into the true crime genre, we were talking before we got on air, and Leslie, it turns out you have a few paranormal experiences, which, you know, the other 2 days of the week that we do this show, we delve into the paranormal. I'm wondering if you would grace us with the paranormal stories that you have before we really get into the decision to kill. Would you tell us a little bit about the paranormal experiences you've had?
Sure. I think it's always kind of interesting. I don't normally share these stories unless I'm in a situation where other people happen to mention something, and then
Sure.
I raise my hand and say, oh, you know, I had a story. And what happened to me was, it was probably in the early 80s. I live here in Oregon, and I was looking at a house to buy, and I was out with a realtor. We came upon this farmhouse she had for me to look at, and we pulled up and looked very old. Okay, so that was kind of a red flag to me. But anyway, it was a cool house, but we walked up to the house, and the woman of the house, they were still living in the house. She talked to the realtor and me and said, you're welcome to walk through the house. The only thing I can tell you is that my 3-year-old son is upstairs sleeping in a bedroom. And would you just be really quiet when you go up there? Just feel free to look around however you want to, but just be aware of that and be quiet up there. And we reassured her we'd be fine. And we walked through the house, and it was a neat old place, and went upstairs, and nothing out of the ordinary, no visions or anything. It was a nice day. There was no cold chills or eerie feeling. But we came back down, and my realtor walked out toward the back part of the property, and the woman was still standing in the doorway, the porch there. And All I can say is there was something about the place, and I just knew there was something there. And I turned to the lady of the house and I said, "Your house is haunted, isn't it?" And she looked at me and she said, "Yes." And she told me that they'd lived there for 7 years and they never had seen anything in the house, but they would wake up occasionally and hear children playing in the background at very odd hours. And of course, there were no children out there. But that was kind of a cool, I don't know what you call it, an experience, I guess, because there was nothing scary or creepy, but it was just a recognition of there was something there besides what we were seeing. And I didn't feel threatened. I just knew there was something there, and I knew it wasn't the place for me, you know?
Yeah. I
didn't. So that was an experience that I had. Now, at that time.
I know in different states, especially out east, they have this it's like a clause where if something is haunted, they have to tell you that the house is haunted. Do they have that in Oregon where they have to notify you if a house is haunted or not?
I have never heard of that. That's very interesting. No? Yeah. I wonder what kind of authenticity they have to bring in, like a group of people to verify that or something.
I think it's also there's a murder clause as well. So if a murder's happened in a house, they have to tell you that a murder's happened. If a house is haunted, I know it's in New York State. They have to tell you if, and I think in Connecticut as well. I'm not quite sure, but there's a couple of different states where if it's believed a house is haunted or is a reported haunting, they can't prove it to be sure. But if there's a reported haunting in a house, they have to tell you that there's been a reported haunting in the house.
Well, I haven't heard of that, but I'm going to check into it just out of curiosity because we have a small mining town near where I live that's historic. It still operates their little shops there, and it's sort of a touristy place. And I know there's a hotel there that it's common knowledge among the residents in the area that it's haunted and that guests have had sightings. So it would be interesting to know if you're supposed to declare that. Yeah,
it would. Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Did you have another paranormal experience you wanted to share, or was that the...
Well, the only thing I was going to say is before my time in law enforcement, I did have an experience that I don't often share with people, but I was stalked by a serial killer. I was one of those people that has a story after the fact.
Really?
Yes. It was not as well known as Bundy, but his name is Charles Edmund Kemper.
Okay. And
he's considered the campus co-ed murder. It happened in Santa Cruz, California. And as it turned out, I lived across the street from him. Oh, and wow. He was calling me on the phone. So that was pretty nightmarish for me. I was about 18 at the time. I was just about to move out of my parents' house. So that was a pretty awful time period for us.
Oh, wow. So how long until he was, from the time he either stopped calling you or from the time he was calling you to the time he was caught? Do you know? His case involved when he was 15, he murdered his grandparents. And they put him in some sort of a mental hospital and let him out at, I think he must have been 20 or 21. And so at that time, his mother, we didn't know. There was a small duplex across the street from us, and she lived in one of the units. So he was living with her. And he started calling me on the phone. In those times, we didn't have caller ID. So in order to trace calls, it was difficult calling me by name when he called. Mm-hmm. He asked for me by name. So I never met him, never saw him. He was a giant of a man.
about 6'5", like 300 pounds. So I would have remembered if I ever saw him. But I eventually moved out of my parents' house, lived on my own. I went to visit my parents. They were away on a vacation. It was Easter Sunday, and this, was another experience that happened to me. I went to their house, and at this time, there was no story about Kemper. He was not in the news. There was nothing. And so I went to the house Sunday. It was a beautiful Sunday. I opened the door, and I couldn't go in. I just had a very creepy feeling that I just couldn't. I couldn't overcome that feeling. I just had to leave. I knew I was in imminent danger, and it was a horrible feeling. And I left and went home. The following day, my mother called me and said, "Have you seen the newspaper?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, they are digging heads up across the street in the backyard." And all of that was part of the unfolding of Edmund Kemper. And he dismembered people, and he went after college age women. And it was pretty frightening to think that he had been calling me on the phone. And we had gotten in touch with the sheriff's office at the time, and they tried to tap the line. They sort of discount it. It's just a prank phone call, but I knew it wasn't a prank phone call. And he had called for weeks at all times of the day.
Yikes.
And so that was a near miss for me, and I'm grateful for that for sure.
Boy,
I mean, not for the experience, but for the outcome for me.
Yeah, no, we're grateful you're still here too, Leslie. It's wow. No, yeah, I'm always. It's amazing. You think we put ourselves in this cocoon or this bubble that we think we're always safe. We walk around with this air of false safety around us, I think, at all times. And we never really realize we're only so many degrees away from an incident, I don't think people realize how close you really are to danger at any given time.
Well, I was just grateful. I know it was divine providence that just kept me from falling into the same fate as some of those other women, and just grateful for it. So, yeah. Now,
did that influence you in any way to get into law enforcement, or was that just so happened to happen and then something else influenced you to get into law enforcement?
I think it probably played a little bit into it. Also, what played into it, I think, is my dad was military. Mm-hmm. He was in the Army, and he was a lieutenant colonel. And so we were a military family. So I always grew up with respect for authority, mm-hmm. and the importance of the role that authority has in the society. So I think that made law enforcement an attractive avenue for me to spend my time in. And so I think both of those things probably affected me.
Okay, interesting. So did you find law enforcement fulfilling? Was that one of those careers that you thought, hey, you know what, that was fulfilling, serving the public?
Well, I took a brief diversion and got married, had a kid, mm-hmm. my son, my oldest. And so that was occupying my time. And as I was a young mom, I did go back. I had started college and I finished my college education. And in the process of that, I was also interested in politics, just not being a politician, but just the whole idea of politics. Mm-hmm. And so just in the course of my classes, one of the classes I took involved communications and dispatch and, emergency dispatch. And part of the class was to spend time at the communication center in the county. That was in Santa Cruz County. And I just found I loved it. I just loved I love the excitement of it. I love the uncertainty of what you do every day at work. I felt like I was part of the adrenaline of getting help to people in need, and yet I was removed from the danger part of it where I wasn't in the middle of things. So I just love doing that.
Well, that's good. That's very good. While you were working dispatch that you met Cheri?
No, because I met Cheri when I moved to Oregon.
Okay.
So I didn't move to Oregon until 1980.
Okay.
And then it was through a church that I was going to that had they had a small banquet, and my husband, who I was engaged to, we went to a banquet where we ended up meeting Cheri and her husband. So that's how we initially met.
Okay, so you're talking about her husband, Don. So you had known Don before everything had happened?
Yeah. What was interesting was my husband and I were engaged in 1986, and that was February when that banquet was, because it was a sweetheart celebrating Valentine's Day banquet. And we went in, and that's just who we ended up being seated with, was Don and Cheri. And hadn't met them before, even though the church was small. You sometimes just don't know everybody, and had never really talked to them. And so we had dinner with them and got to know them. And that's the kind of odd thing that, as I was looking back on the series of events of how I got to write the book or came about doing that, was thinking how we were sitting with them at that table in February, and it was October of that year that Dwayne shot and killed Don. And I thought about what normally people do when they are meeting people. You know, you ask about what they do and where they live and if they have kids. And I've just wondered since then, you know, we would have asked if they had kids. And I just wondered if there was any hint of problems. I'm sure they wouldn't have shared that with us as, you know, we had just met them. But yeah, so we had the opportunity to get to know Don. He was a very friendly guy.
Now, that's what comes across in the book. Tell us a little bit about, before we launch into things, a little bit about Don and Cheri and about their daily lives. Now, Don did what for a living?
Don was a heavy equipment operator. So when they had moved up also from California, but down in Southern California, and they moved up about 1970. And he came up here initially without work, but he always was able to find work. So soon after they moved here, they started the Applegate Dam, which is in the Applegate Valley, which is where they had bought property. And so he is a heavy equipment operator. Later on in the book, as that project finished, he became he worked for a logging company as a mechanic, because this is a logging area, and all these logging trucks that are out on roads, remote roads, needed to be maintained, and they needed somebody to come to their aid if they were having trouble. So he was a busy guy and very adept at mechanical things.
And as he's working a lot of hours, obviously, because there's a lot to do out there when it comes to logging. They're working from sunup to sundown, and he's accruing quite a bit of money, and he's looking forward with Cheri to building kind of their ultimate home, isn't he?
Yes, they had always, when they met down in California. It's funny, they met first when they were in junior high, and then lost touch with each other for 9 years, and then met again in their 20s and then got married. And they both had a dream. They both loved fishing, the outdoors. They wanted to move out of California up to the Pacific Northwest. So they came up here, found some property along the beautiful Applegate River, just overgrown. There was nothing much to look at, although it was along the river. And they put their resources into the property and went back to California to live for a couple more years to save money. And then they moved up here and brought a mobile home up here and set up shop. So it really was a dream for them. They wanted the fishing, outdoor life that can happen in Oregon, especially in Southern Oregon. So it was a dream come true for them.
And it sounds absolutely beautiful. And there's a time where as they move up to Oregon there and they start this, and it sounded like it was laborious at that. I mean, not only was it beautiful, but they were building a lot from scratch, because obviously, although Don was working very hard and they had to accrue money. I think at one point it's mentioned in the book that they got a windfall or an inheritance, didn't they, to kind of get them going on this home?
Yeah, they were living in the mobile home for quite a while, and then they had a little bit of a problem because Don was between jobs, and he had taken on a different sort of business venture that wasn't paying him very well, but was requiring a lot of hours for him. And so the income dropped off. And Cheri was a beautician by profession, but after she moved up from California, she pretty much, they had Dwayne, and so she pretty much was being a stay-at-home mom and helping, to try to clear the land and all of that. So they were able to build the house after her grandfather died and left her some money. So that kind of compensated for Don's change in work. And they had the funds to actually build a very modest home.
Now, you say they had Dwayne. There was a bit of an issue because they were trying to have children, but they were having a bit of an issue with infertility, so they decided to adopt, correct?
That's right. Yeah, okay. They had tried it was 8 years, and she did not get pregnant. So they decided that adoption was an option that they wanted to explore, and they did so. And from the moment that they adopted Dwayne, they considered him their son. There was never any, he's just adopted attitude at all. He was their son, and they were excited to have him and just so happy to be able to be parents. And so they have Dwayne, they're raising him, they're happy, the house is being built, things are moving along steadily. At what point does Danette come along? And that's their second child. Right. Yeah. Dwayne was 5 when Cheri actually became pregnant. So it was like 13 years that she was infertile, and then they have Donette. So yeah, that was a big surprise. There was a lot of celebration about that, and they were very happy to have had her. Now, there's some issues even before Danette is born with Dwayne. Wasn't there an issue with some cats before Danette was born, where there was kind of an odd issue down by the river with Dwayne? Yeah, the family, the parents were early risers. This happened on a weekend morning when both Don and Cheri were home, and Dwayne was about 4. And Cheri heard something. She had the window open, and they were asleep, and something from outside woke her up, and she crawled out of bed and looked out the window, and she saw Dwayne out there standing on the lawn. He was soaked from head to toe, and so she couldn't even imagine what had happened. Of course, woke Don up. He went running outside and whisked him in and dried him off. They brought him in, but he was totally wet. Now you have to remember that this beautiful property they lived on was along the Applegate River, and so a pretty dangerous spot for a child to be wandering around out. And then they did also have a creek that ran along the property's side into the river. So they were, after they got him kind of calmed down and dried off, because he was upset, he was crying, Dwayne was crying. They asked him, what happened to you? They were trying not to get him upset again, but they wanted to know what had taken place. And all they could get out of him was something about the kittens. And they had a mother cat that had a litter of kittens a few weeks before. And so all Don could figure from that was he was going to go out and check on the kittens, see what was going on. Now, this is a big piece of property with trails and woods, and but this path that led from about the house down to the creek, that's where Don felt was most likely that Dwayne had gone. And he went down and explored. There was a footbridge between the Weir's house and the neighbors. And near the footbridge and close to the creek, he found the cats. The mother cat and her kittens were all near the creek, and they were as wet as Dwayne was, and they were curled up near the blackberry bushes. And Don was, of course, confused about what had happened, and so all he knew was that the cats were wet and Dwayne was wet and the creek was there. It must have had something to do with the creek. So he goes back in the house, and the only thing that Cheri and Don were able to get out of Dwayne was that he and the cats had ended up in the water. He said he had thrown them from the footbridge, but his reason for that kept changing as they tried to get out of him, what he was doing, why he was out there. He gave excuse that one of the cats had scratched him, or the cats wanted a drink of water, or he wanted to see if they could swim. So they were very disturbed by that behavior, and never really were sure what he did, if he even had a motive. But they were even more disturbed by the situation that Dwayne could have easily drowned in the creek. The water was running pretty high, and they were just very concerned about that. So that was a big red flag to the couple, and they just secured the house even more. They thought he wouldn't be able to get out of the house without them realizing it. And so, of course, they were concerned about that and remedied that. But the behavior itself was disturbing.
As it should be. And you would think at that point, the antennae are up a little bit, and now it's time to kind of look after them, because, there's, that's kind of the beginnings of some odd behavior that you might want to keep an eye on. Now, you've mentioned that Danette comes along, and at that point, Dwayne is around 5 years old, and it's at this point that you really have to start to wonder, is Dwayne okay with this? At this point, we want to take a break. When we come back, we're going to find out, how did Dwayne deal with Danette, and did he look after Danette like the good older brother he should be, or did he look at Danette in a sibling rivalry kind of way? And how does Dwayne start to develop as a young kid and then as a teenager? And does he fly the straight and narrow, or does he start to take that kind of, shall we say, path not quite not quite a good path that we would expect him to take after that first incident. The book is an intriguing one, folks. I encourage you to click on the link in the description of this program and pick it up. It's called The Decision to Kill, a true crime story of a teenage killer and the mother who loved him. Our guest is Leslie Ghiglieri. And when we come back, we'll talk more about Dwayne and his decisions and that fateful day in 1986. When we come back here on the Best in True Crime Podcasting, this is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the Best in True Crime Podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm Tim Dennis. Our guest is Lisa Ghiglieri. The book is The Decision to Kill, a true crime story of a teenage killer and the mother who loved him. Leslie, when we went to break, Danette was born, and Dwayne is just a young child, but he's already started to show a bit of a personality disorder, in that he's taking it out on animals, and now he's starting to get a little older, and now he has a sister. And does he look at his sister Danette as kind of a fun little playmate, or does he look at her as a sibling rival?
Well, I think from what Cheri told me, they did what most parents try to do. They want to be really sensitive to the sibling that's already been in the house and help them not to feel displaced. So there was a lot of hype when Cheri was pregnant because, of course, she hadn't been pregnant before. So there was a lot of anticipation on the part of the family members, but the parents tried very hard to include him in just activities, preparations on a minimal level, just making sure that he knew that that this baby was going to be part of the family, not replacing him. And even at the time that Donette was born, they went out of their way to make sure that he went to visit with Dawn to the hospital as soon as the hospital would. In those days, they would keep people in the hospital for several days, and he could go in and see his mom and his baby sister, and that when they did bring Donette and Cheri home, that they came back home as a family. So I think as much as possible, it sounded like they tried to include Dwayne. And at first he was very excited, but being 5 years old, and he had friends, of course, that had sisters and brothers. So he thought, well, now he has a sister. I think he was anticipating, this is just from what she told me, I have no way of knowing exactly what he's anticipating, but, that, wow, now he has a sister or somebody to play with. And he probably at 5 didn't have a realistic idea of what having a baby around the house would mean, in terms of it wasn't exactly a playmate that was coming home for him. So after a few weeks, he pretty much lost interest in her. And I think from what the family members have told me, the difference in age also made a lot of difference. So he was interested in doing things that the baby wasn't interested in. And although there still was ongoing excitement about having this new little girl, Dwayne was showing even more signs of preferring to play on his own and do things on his own. He was pretty much of a loner in school as he got old enough to begin in school. He would participate if required, but a lot of times he kind of held back. But there was no, if there was jealousy, which I guess exists in a lot of families, some more overt than others, he was just a little disillusioned that she wasn't the playmate he had been hoping for.
And Cheri did little things to try and even things up for Dwayne. She even signed him up for Boy Scouts and went to Boy Scout meetings with him, and and tried to encourage him. I think they even brought home a tree at one time and planted the tree in the yard and tried to keep him engaged, but that didn't even really seem to work out either, did it?
Not as much as they hoped. Of course, see, because Don and Cheri just loved the outdoors so much, they were hoping to share that with their children. And Dwayne never seemed all that excited about going out and doing things. And I think that was also part of the idea of getting him involved in Boy Scouts, was just the idea of spending time outdoors and camping. And he would do it. He enjoyed wearing a uniform and getting dressed up and being a part of something, he said, later in life. But even though Cheri had him involved for 3 years, never a real transformation. He just wasn't crazy about group activities or doing crafts.
Meanwhile, they each are getting busier. Cheri is trying to maintain the household and the kids. Don is at work and he's working more and more hours. He's taken on, I believe, part of a business, hasn't he, by this time?
Yes, you're right. That was when he was, he had partnered up with some friends of theirs that owned a market that they would frequent, and the couple had become good friends with the couple that owned the business. And Don had gotten tired of doing the heavy equipment operating. He just was ready for a change. And when his friend Bill offered to put him in partnership with him in this mill project, Don thought it was a great opportunity. So yes, that was about that time. And so he started working, thinking, as some of us know that have been involved in small businesses, it's not as glamorous as it seems to own your own business. You think you have independence, but then you have a lot more on the other end as far as time, and it just becomes more work than you realize. So Don was being required to spend even more time away from home and left Cheri to take care of the kids. And by this time, you mentioned the house, they had kind of built it a little bit at a time. So there were unfinished house projects that were bothering Cheri, who was a little resentful that Don was gone so much from home. It was tough on their marriage.
And what makes it even tougher is that there's a woman down at the mill who's a little sweet on Don, and she brings her car by for Don to work on, and that becomes a bit of an issue.
Yes, that created a problem that I think had already been going on as they had both become so busy. They were neglecting each other and getting a little bit impatient with each other, and it was kind of coming out in their relationship just as a whole. So when he was at the mill and this young woman showed interest in him, it created a problem. At
this point, Don decides, you know what, I think something happens in here where Cheri decides she's not going to let this woman pay more attention to her man than she is. She decides to bring down lunch, finds this woman sitting in Don's lap. Don's a little ashamed. Is that a good way to put it? Ashamed.
I'd say so.
Yeah. And she's, the woman's a little embarrassed, and Cheri's more than upset. And Don at that point decides to reinvest in the marriage a little bit and decides that they're all going to go to church together, which is a good way of solving that. So he reinvests himself into the marriage and into the family, and kind of redoubles his efforts. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. So at that point, they kind of all redouble their efforts, and they're noticing a little bit that Dwayne really isn't fitting in anywhere, and they try to reconnect with Dwayne a little bit. And they're also noticing that Dwayne's having a hard time hearing. Now, up until this point, we haven't mentioned that Dwayne has had some issues, some physical issues that Cheri has noticed. Tell us a little bit about the physical issues that are going on with Dwayne.
Well, it started out really early. Soon after they had adopted him, he was developing welts on his skin anytime he was cold or wet and cold especially. And they were not just like diaper rash welts, but anywhere on his body that he was feeling that way. And they were itchy and painful and didn't respond to any of the medications that Cheri would put on him. And she went to the pediatrician. They were prescribed medications, but they didn't seem to help. And along with that, he had been diagnosed with asthma. He had breathing difficulties. And so, like I mentioned in the book, the parents were worried about Dwayne early on because you hate to see, especially a little one, they're so vulnerable. You hate to see them struggling with health issues so young, and not being able to understand what's going on. And so they were very upset about that. But they just kind of took it in stride, I guess you would say. Dwayne was their son. They were going to do whatever it took to make sure he had good care. And if that meant they ended up at the hospital with him and for breathing treatments, they just would do what they needed to. But it did go on. He did have kind of mysterious ailments that would show up at different points in his life. And Cheri was very worried about that for him. And so the hearing seemed to be just another thing that Dwayne ended up having problems with. And it was noticed when he first went to school. Cheri hadn't noticed it at home in the home environment, but perhaps it's noisier in school. There's background sounds. There's other things going on that the teacher noticed and said Cheri needed to take him in and get him checked to see if there was something that could be done about it. So that's what she did. She took him to an audiologist.
So he gets the hearing aids and things start to look up a little bit for him. They also decide that they're going to find an interest for him, and it turns out that music is a big interest for him. They decide to get him a boombox. That's one of the things they decide to do, a CD boombox. They also decide, is it at that point they decide to also invest in some music equipment for him as well?
I think the music equipment kind of transpires because of the interest in music. So once he's involved in listening to music a lot, then it just naturally progressed for him to want some drums, and, then he wanted a guitar. So slowly that evolved where they were able to purchase some things for him because they wanted very badly to connect with this son of theirs that it seemed for some reason they just couldn't. He didn't like the things that they liked. He wasn't especially communicative. They were trying to find something he enjoyed that they could help him have an interest in. So yes, they got him some music equipment, and that was Dwayne's thing after that. He loved music. He loved playing songs on his guitar, on his drums with the background boombox going, and even got involved with some friends that also liked playing music.
By the time Dwayne's hit 5th grade, though, he's starting to develop a habit of stealing. He steals an ink pen at a convenience store. He also steals something that he probably shouldn't have when it comes to his girlfriend at the time, Sandy. Tell our audience what it is he steals from right underneath his parents' nose.
Yeah, well, one day, Dwayne and the girlfriend, Sandy, are coming home. They've been dropped off by the bus at the end of the driveway, and Cheri's outside. Cheri's loves working in the yard. And of course, there's plenty of yard on their property to work on. And she stands up to greet them when they come walking down the driveway. And she notices that Sandy is wearing this heirloom ring that she has. And it was a ring that was given to her by her grandmother. And it had been from a former relationship the grandmother had had. It was a engagement ring, and the engagement did not end up in marriage. And the grandmother had this beautiful reconstructed ruby ring and this vintage setting around the 1800s, and had given it to Cheri when Cheri turned 16. And Cheri looks at Sandy and notices the ring on her finger and said, where did you get that ring? And of course, Dwayne is standing right there, and Sandy looks at Dwayne and says, Dwayne gave it to me. Mm. And Cheri just immediately says, Dwayne didn't have the right to take that ring. It's not his to give away, and you'll have to give it back. Of course, Dwayne was embarrassed by being called out on it in front of his mother and Cheri and Sandy, but that was the first time. That was very upsetting to Cheri. And of course, after Sandy left, she talked to Dwayne about it and told him he had no right to take anything, that if he wanted something for a girlfriend and there was something she had that maybe she wouldn't mind giving to him, that was one thing. But she talked to him about, you can't take things that don't belong to you. You can't take things from your family just because they're in the house. And that really was a big step in realizing just how serious he had gotten in taking things that didn't belong to him just because he wanted them.
Yeah, he gets flippant about things. He even goes so far as to go into his sister's room and steal money from her. And he's flippant about it. He just says, "Oh, I'll pay her back. It's no big deal." He doesn't care that he gets caught. It's just matter of fact. Oh, yeah, no big deal.
That's right. And that was a concern. And how do you change behavior when he doesn't see that, even though you tell him, that that's not what you do. You don't take things that don't belong to you. And yet he was doing that, like you mentioned about stealing at the convenience store, a pen that he had they had plenty of pens at home. It wasn't something like he needed it. It was more just he wanted to take something. And so it was just becoming more of a habit that he was doing with regularity, either stealing, they'd find things missing in the home. And, then it was trying to find out what happened, and knowing that it was Dwayne, and questioning him. It just was part of the tension that was continuing to build in the household with Dwayne.
And Don and Cheri even told him, which I don't know if I agree with this or not. And I guess, Leslie, this is, you may agree to disagree with me. They tell him, well, if you need money for something, just tell us and ask, and we'll give it to you. I don't know that I agree with that. Do you agree with that?
Oh, that's interesting, because I know when I talk with Cheri about the money situation, because this was before Dwayne he did work for a while at a gas station, mm-hmm. and so he was able to earn some money there himself. But before that, they would do what parents commonly do, is give some sort of an allowance to kids. So before they're able to earn money, if they do chores around the house, that kind of thing, just so that they can have spending money. But they discovered early on that whenever they gave money to Dwayne, it was gone. So Don especially was very careful about giving Dwayne any money, because unless he knew that Dwayne wanted it for something in particular, they weren't about to give him, say, $20 and just say, oh, if you need money, here you go. I felt like they kind of monitored it, and it certainly wasn't just, they didn't have the money to do that. They were a hardworking family.
Yeah.
Without any extra income. So they weren't, even if they had been less casual or more casual about it, they couldn't have given him a lot of money. But yeah, kind of, I guess maybe that was their idea. If he wants something, ask for it. Don't just go take it. At least ask, and we'll let you have money if you need it for something, but don't go take it. I don't know.
I understand that, but I guess throw in the caveat of, if you can't afford it, then you have to save for it. I mean,
yes.
That was always thrown in, I guess, when I was a kid. If you don't have the money for it, well, then you have to plan for it. That was part of budgeting,
Well, in answering your question and knowing Cheri, since she had to budget, I'm sure she expected that of him as well. So without knowing specifics, I just suspect that a lot of those details were tried on him. It just didn't work.
It just didn't work. Okay.
He didn't save. He didn't have money. He took what he wanted without asking.
Okay.
And it was just getting worse.
Okay. The other thing that's kind of alarming, and you and I had talked about this off air, is they were a big fan of barbecues, and that's how they entertained. They had this lovely back porch or a lovely patio that they barbecued on, and they had families over, friends over that they would barbecue for, and they would entertain that way. Don and Cheri would, and there's always the argument from the 70s, especially kids who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, of, do you give your kid a sip of beer? Is that an accepted norm from that time period? Now you would never do it. You would never say, oh yeah, just give the kid a sip of beer. It's not a big deal. Now it's believed that can set up a craving in a kid. At least that's what a lot of drug and alcohol counselors will tell you. Don't ever do that. You could potentially be setting up a craving within a child, or you could be, at the very least, you're showing off a bad behavior. Even if you told a child protective services agent you gave a kid a sip of beer, it'd be grounds for potentially taking your child away. In those days, it was no big deal. You gave a kid a sip of beer. If they asked for it, it's no big deal. It's a sip of beer. What is it going to do? What harm is it? Don went a little far, I think, when we talk about what he would give Dwayne. Tell us a little bit about the extremes, if you want to call it an extreme. At what ages he would allow and what he would do when it came to Dwayne and his demands for beer?
Well, probably about 12. He, at one of these barbecues, he did let Dwayne sip his beer. Don, of course, would be barbecuing. At the barbecue, he'd be standing there, and he'd have his beer can or beer bottle, whichever, and Dwayne would come out, and as Dwayne got to be around 11, 12, he just, wanted to have a sip of Don's beer. And I can't I can't say for certain what was going on in Don's mind. Maybe to him, having a beer with his son, well, that's one thing when they're 20, but at 12, well, what's a sip? Like you said, I remember as a kid, my dad saying I could have a sip of his beer, and I was young too. And I do think that that's something that is not a good thing, and it is good that we have a different perspective on it now. So it was a casualness that Don felt himself about smoking or drinking, and maybe it was a way that he could just connect with Dwayne in a way that he hadn't been able to do with all the things that he had wanted to do with him, with the fishing and hunting and just the outdoor activities. Maybe at least they would be able to have a beer, even, as kind of lame as that sounds.
Yeah. I want to skip ahead a little bit here. I will mention things such as Dwayne at this point starts with a little bit of manipulation. And this happens at times with all teenagers, but it happened, I think, a little bit more with Dwayne. He started to, what's a good way of putting this, Leslie? He started to manipulate a little bit more. Like you mentioned, he got a job at the Chevron station as he got older. He was working. He fell in with a bad group of friends that centered around music. He had eventually got a guitar. He joined a band. It turns out that the band were heavy pot smokers, and it turns out that their parents were pot smokers as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Don and Cheri eventually found out about that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they're slowly finding out that every time Dwayne is wanting something, there's an ulterior motive, right?
I would say that's true.
That there's their trust in him is on a very short leash.
Well, probably pretty close to non-existent, other than they're naive, or I'm not sure that's the correct word, but they're longing as a parent to think it's not as bad as they really think it is, but knowing it's bad, just wanting to believe they can trust him and knowing that they can't trust him by what they've seen that he does, but just wanting him to be honest about things, but it just never seems to go that way.
Like Padme said about Anakin Skywalker in one of the Star Wars films, she wanted to believe there was still good in him, but they wanted to believe there was still good in him, but every time they turned around, there was that little bit where he would betray their trust, and it just got to the point where it got seriously bad. I want to get to the point where we're almost a day or two before that fatal day in 1986. We've gotten to a point now where Cheri has gotten an invite to her high school reunion, and she's feeling like she shouldn't go because of the things that are going on at home, because maybe it might be a little bit too much for her to leave the home. She doesn't trust that she can leave the home, especially with the things that Dwayne's pulling, that there's still things that need to be done with the house, that, Don is putting in so much time at the job. He eventually had to leave the mill and go back to the heavy machinery work, correct?
Yes, actually a little bit different work. It was primarily mechanic work on the logging trucks. It wasn't operating like earth moving equipment anymore. It was doing mechanical work and maintenance for these big logging trucks and their service vehicles. And
they're getting to the point now where they really can't trust Dwayne to be Home Alone, or even that short leash we're talking about has gotten even shorter, where it's just a fist next to that leash, and they're holding on tight. On Fridays, Dwayne can sometimes be let go from school at noon. So for Cheri to be able to go to her high school reunion back in California, correct?
Yes.
Okay. For her to be able to go back to that high school reunion, it's Don that has to be able to go back and get him at school. However, he can't be in two places at one time. So he does have a friend who is kind of down and out on his luck. So Don has agreed to hire him to do some jobs for him. Is this the case?
Yeah. Don didn't really have extra cash to spend on helping out somebody else who was going through financial trouble, but he did see himself at a disadvantage with Cheri away, because they were obviously, like most couples, they were both busy. So for him to carry on with his obligations and also fill in the tasks for Cheri, he knew it was going to be tight. So when this friend Larry had asked him for some cash, Don said, well, I can't do that, but I will pay you if you'll help me out when I need you to help me out. So this one particular evening, Don knew he was not going to get in back. Actually, it wasn't on the Friday. It was a few days before that.
Okay.
So he Don wasn't going to be able to pick Dwayne up. Dwayne was going to a Christian school because they were hoping that the Christian environment would help just support their values at home, be a little more structured for him. And they were doing all they could because they saw how things were going with Dwayne, and none of it was very good. So they put him in the Christian school, and there was no transportation for him to get home. And of course, at that point, they didn't want to trust him with driving himself. So Don was stuck out in the woods and asked this friend of his to pick Dwayne up after school. And so Don carried on with his work, and he was stuck out there so long that it was dark by the time he got back into radio range. The company he worked for operated kind of a shortwave radio dispatch system. So they said that they had heard from Dwayne somehow. I'm not sure how Dwayne actually had gotten in touch with them, but that he had been left at the school, and he was wanting to be picked up. And Don, when Don drives in, he sees Dwayne, and it's night. It's about 9:00, and he thinks that his dad just left him there and forgot about him, which of course was not the case. But Don didn't want Dwayne to realize that their friend Larry had not picked him up. It was Larry that had forgotten. So Dwayne went about thinking that his dad had forgotten him. And that just added to the tension that was building up through that week.
There's a lot of stuff that happened that week before Don was murdered. I mean, Dwayne really weaved this web. I'll get that out yet here, Leslie. Weaved this web that set himself up to have excuses for the rest of his life as to he was weaving this web of deniability that he could blame other people for what he did. To give people an idea, and we'll kind of skim over this a little bit. And again, I encourage people to get the book to read into it further. At one point, he starts arguing with Cheri, Dwayne does, and Don steps in. He finally has had enough. He happens to be home at the time that he's arguing with Cheri, and Don steps up to Dwayne and says, "You want to be a tough guy? Be a tough guy with me." Step up to me and argue with me. You know, you want to fight with somebody, fight with me. And it's at that point that Dwayne takes that and says to Cheri, well, I could call Dad in on child abuse. Well, no, you can't. You're the guy who wants to be the tough guy with Mom. All Dad said was, you want to be a tough guy? Step up. That's all he said. He never put his hands on his son. Am I correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, in that one situation, he did shove him. Don did shove Dwayne.
Well, he shoved him, but it's not like he.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I've received some beatings in my time, Leslie. That a shove is not child abuse.
No, and really, it was always somebody else's fault. It was always someone else's fault.
Yeah.
And you're right. He always used a situation and twisted it around to turn it into something else. If he got blamed for something, he would say he didn't do it. And then it would be found out later he did. So he would get everyone around him apologizing. You know, well, maybe this time Dwayne didn't do it. It's not right if we blame him for something he didn't do. I mean, we should blame him for things he does do, but if we're blaming him for things he doesn't do, and then you feel bad, and he's just there just laughing inside with, oh, I'm getting my way again. Then they find out later that he was lying as usual, and here he made his parents feel bad. Mm-hmm. So, he would do that, and he did that in the times that that Don happened to be there, that did step between him and Cheri, and this is not happening, and Don, of course, then Don would feel bad. Yeah. So, but Dwayne didn't feel bad at all.
No,
so
no.
It was very ineffective. It was very ineffective, and we haven't addressed it yet, but they sought out so much help very early on when they were seeing that there was behavioral problems with him or things that didn't seem right, as Cheri noticed very early on. She wanted help. She wanted help in understanding her son and straightening out problems that she saw taking place, and she couldn't find effective help. And that's part of the tragedy of this story, because you did have parents that maybe as you read the story, you think, I could have done this differently, and this would have been a better thing for them to do. But they were ordinary folks that were doing the best they could in a very tough situation, and even trying to get help and couldn't find it.
Well, I think we also have to think of the time period too. In the mid 80s, something like borderline personality disorder was never heard of, and it wasn't diagnosable. Even in the time where, and we'll get to it here when we talk in a little bit about Dwayne's prison years, borderline personality disorder was not a psychological disorder that you could diagnose. It wasn't a psychosis. You couldn't say that he was schizophrenic, because he wasn't. You could tell that he was a danger to society, but he wasn't under any particular type of psychosis. So you couldn't say, well, I can say he's this, but he's not that. And I'll get to that point here in a second here, Leslie, as to why. And I told you something off air that there was a mistake that Dwayne himself made in this entire deal that was his downfall. So Dwayne in this whole deal, to kind of give you the Cliff Notes version, has done some terrible, terrible things to his parents. He's put them through acid trips. He's even at one point he's drugged Cheri into a drug den to try and come find him after he's run away from home. and yet he, because Daddy shoved him once, Dad was a terrible monster, and then he claims to Cheri at one point when she made her come find him that she had a 357 pointed at her from behind a curtain at one point, and she could have had her head blown off had she made one more move. But he reveals this stuff to her nonchalantly and almost defiantly, with almost a giggle in his voice. But oh, Daddy shoved me. And to him, that becomes the catalyst for murder. You see how that's twisted?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Well, it's all to justify what he wants to do. That's, he wants a result that he wants, and he's going to use things and twist them so that they work for him. And that's what he did. And
then he also uses in another situation, he says, well, my dad, I'm trying to think of how he put this, and maybe you can correct me on this, Leslie. He say something to the effect of, well, my dad, how did he put it? He basically, it was my dad would basically, like with the beer, my dad would do horrible things, and then not horrible things, but he would, I'm not coming up with the right words here. He would, something like he would, what am I looking for the words here?
Well, I know you were, I think when you mentioned beer, that's what made me think of what situation I think you were referring to. Like, he was two-faced.
Yes.
I think he actually used that term, two-faced.
Yes.
So in front of Dwayne, he would be all buddy, and let's go get a six-pack, and you can drive home and drink a beer while, I drink a beer over here in the passenger seat. But then when he was around, when Dawn was around his wife, it was all a totally different thing. So that was Dwayne said, very confusing to him.
Yes.
So somehow that made him hate his dad for being two-faced, and also confused him, so it justified some of his choices. Right. I don't know, somehow, is that what you kind of got out of that part?
That's what I got out of that part, correct. So tell us, Leslie, what was the final straw? What happened on the night that Dwayne killed Dawn?
Well, what had happened right before Cheri left on her trip was Dawn had given Cheri, she was packing for the trip. She was flying early the next morning, which was, I believe, on a Monday morning. She was packing her bags. He gave her an extra $60. And at that time, $60 was, a big bonus. Mm-hmm. And he said, here, I have this saved. I want you to take this. So she had taken the money and put it in her wallet. And her wallet, of course, was in her purse. And that's all with her suitcases and everything she was planning on taking. So it was all set. And then the night before her trip, she just went to double check. She had everything she'd planned on taking, and discovered the money was missing. The $60 was gone. And so here she is, not wanting to go on the trip, worried about what's going to happen while she's gone, excited to go on the trip, but not wanting to. And she finds this money gone. She knows she has to tell Dawn. They have to deal with this again. She doesn't want to deal with it the night before she leaves, and yet she feels like she can't go without addressing the situation. So what happens that night, which I won't go into all the details because it makes for a good story.
Yep.
But they do address it with Dwayne. She tells Dawn. They talk to Dwayne, and they decide nothing else has worked with him. They've tried just keeping him from being able to go places, restricting his activities, changing curfews, everything they can think of. Nothing has worked with Dwayne. And so what are they going to do? They're going to lock up all his music equipment, his beloved music equipment. Mm-hmm. And for the duration of Cheri's time away, it will be locked up. So that was something they had never even told him they would think of doing. And so by Friday, so you figure it's been locked up for a week on several occasions. He has approached Don to let him have his equipment, and Don has said no. Then the one night where he's left at the school and thinks Don has left him at the school and forgotten about him. And then some other things that have taken place. Friday morning comes around, and Friday morning is October 17th. And he has to start the day like he does every other day with ingesting drugs before he goes to school. He has a short day at school, and he's been in trouble for lying about purchasing beer and for other things. And Don says, I'm picking you up from school at noon. You're spending the day with me. You have to ride around with me, and you're not going anywhere because I'm keeping an eye on you. So that's the way that day starts, and it just doesn't get any better.
Okay. We'll leave that there because the details of the murder are in the book. And I want you to read the book, folks. It's grisly. It's grisly, and it sets up a lot of what's in the book there. Now, I want to skip to a few things after Dwayne is incarcerated. I know that may seem weird. I know we're jumping around here a little bit, Leslie, but here's the deal. And it has to do with redemption and nature versus nurture, and what I started out with at the beginning of this program. And it has to do with, can you escape your wiring? And it is brought up in the book a little bit. And I think the way people might interpret this book, and it has to do with this. When Dwayne is sentenced, because no doubt about it, Dwayne, at one point, he proclaims himself innocent. And then, and this is the maddening, believe it or not, I want to tell our audience first before we jump into this. We've only told you about the first part of the book. We're an hour and 20 minutes into this podcast, and we've only told you about the first part of the book. That's it. That's all we've told you about. And we haven't even told you about the entire first half of the book. We might have gone half of the first part of the book. That's how much is here. Now, we're only going to skim the second half in telling you that, and this is why I encourage you to go get this book and really read this book. And I'll tell you, this book is a heart-wrenching book. You may think to yourself, I don't know that I have anything to root for Dwayne about. He doesn't seem like the type of person I'd want to root for. But I'll tell you this much about Dwayne, in that there's somebody like Dwayne probably in your family, or somebody that you know that's like Dwayne. There are people in our society everywhere that are like Dwayne, that you know of, that you go, you know what? They're just a step to the left away from making a decision just like this, that have this type of personality, that you know are just a step away from needing that type of help, but you don't know how to help them. And it's maddening. It's maddening. And you want to help. Now, Leslie, you and I were talking off air about the one thing that Dwayne could have done to help himself. Okay. We were talking about it. We set it up this entire hour and 20 minutes. And I'm going to tell you how he could have helped himself. Okay. So at one point, and this is where I was starting to lead in, at one point during the trials, he pled innocent. Then he pled guilty. Then he changed lawyers. Then he figured out some sort of mad scheme in that he was going to try and plead insanity, but couldn't plead insanity because of a previous testimony. And there were some other things that went on where eventually he ended up, because he had jeopardized himself, he had to plead guilty to the crime. And he ends up having to serve initially as a juvenile because he was a juvenile. But then he had this mad scheme while he was in jail that if he, correct me if I'm wrong here, Leslie, and I probably am, if he got physical with an inmate, he would be able to go to an adult jail if he got physical and basically got his charge. How does it work? Where if he gets in a fight, they up his charge back up to an adult charge and he goes to an adult jail. Is that how it happened?
No, it's really interesting about that. And it may have changed a little, and maybe it's different in state to state. I can only speak to Oregon, but at the time that Dwayne was arrested, they do right off the bat after he's arraigned, they know that there's enough evidence to hold him and charge him. Then they do a remand hearing, and they decide whether or not he's going to be, because he was 17. He was 16 at the time he did the crime. He was 17 a few months later. But if you're a juvenile and you commit a crime like that, you can be remanded to adult court, or they can deal with it in juvenile court. And it's all very different, as you can imagine, if they're treating you like you're an adult versus if they're treating you like you're a juvenile, because they view that as a juvenile is maybe more likely to be rehabilitated, not quite as hardened. I mean, I'm being super general here, but they're kept in a juvenile facility, which is more geared to having access to, like, getting your high school diploma, and they treat them much different than they do if you're in with full adult repeat offenders in an adult jail. Well, Dwayne actually had a desire before he even was sentenced. He had a desire. He told everybody, "I'm not going to a juvenile facility." And the only thing anybody could figure out for him to have this view, because his attorney said, "You're out of your mind. You don't want to go to an adult facility. You want to go to the juvenile facility." They just think that somebody that he talked to while being housed at the county jail level, where there were adults that he would have been housed with when he came over to Josephine County between his hearings. So he had contact with people that gave him really bad advice. Or maybe I don't know, maybe just thought of it on his own, because there was no good reason that he should have wanted not to be in a juvenile facility. The duration of the sentence is shorter. Your treatment is better. The programs are better. Everything's better, and, but he went in to the sentencing saying, "I want to go to adult prison." Well, the judge, he was remanded, all that to say, sorry. He was remanded into adult court. So he was treated like an adult, but he he was sentenced, when he was sentenced, he should have gone to a juvenile facility until he reached the age of 25, at which point, if he still had length in his sentence, he would be transferred to an adult facility. But the juvenile system, maybe I'm giving you too much information, but the juvenile system does this as a courtesy to people like Dwayne, to give them a better opportunity not to have to be in that environment sooner than they have to be. So they do it. But if somebody like Dwayne, who came in there saying, I don't want to be in with juveniles, and I'm just gonna create some trouble so they won't want me here, and they'll put me in with adults. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. And
so he went into the juvenile facility, and the first chance he had, he started a fight, and they just, you're too much trouble. We're not going to keep you. We don't have to have you here.
Yeah.
So we don't want a troublemaker. So you're going, and they put him in a transport vehicle and sent him to the adult facility.
And not only that, but he created just a horrible experience in jail of his own making for years and years and years and years. And again, you can read it in the book. But then and only then, he also exposed himself as to who he truly was in jail. And that's the one thing I don't think he realized. He, by acting out and acting outrageously in jail, he truly showed who he was. And the one thing, Leslie, that I told you off air, that I, again, without revealing the back end of the book here, is he did some outrageous things, and it seemed like every time you turned around, he was getting cited for something, and he was getting thrown in the hole for something. He was getting thrown in the hole for this, and he wasn't taking responsibility for it. I did this. They said I did this. They said I did this, but I know I didn't do that. And all this time, he's writing his mother. At first, he's writing his mother to get her forgiveness. And as he's doing this, he's blaming everybody except for himself for what went on. And then finally, he starts to take responsibility for what he did, but he was putting the blame on others for making him do it. What he never did was take responsibility fully for what happened. And he never took responsibility for his mental illness. And that's the one thing that the parole board saw that he didn't. When he kept coming up for parole, he never sat down and when, he had to come up with packets, these packets to, and he had to take like the MMPI, which is a common test that was come up with here in Minnesota. Which by the way, I love the reference in the book when there's a point in the book where he's coming back from physical ailments, and in jail he finds out that he has this, what's the name of the syndrome? Alport syndrome? Yes, which is why he's got the welts and why he's got in renal failure and these different symptoms that he's had since he was young, is because he's got this Alport syndrome. He can, as much as he's got this physical Alport syndrome and he knows he can point to that and be responsible for his physical health, he's never taken responsibility for having a mental illness and his mental health. He's never taken responsibility for his mental illness being responsible for the death of his father, for his mental illness being the responsibility for breaking up his family, for his mental illness being responsible for everybody else's issues, for his mental illness blowing up everything in his path, for him being the one doing it. I mean, he takes responsibility for him doing it, but he doesn't take responsibility for the real issue. And in that's the issue. Had he done that with the parole board, everything would have been okay.
Now, that's interesting you should say that, but I don't quite understand the you're making a differentiation there, one that you see really clearly. Mm-hmm. It sounds to me when you say that's blaming then the illness, like I can't help it, I have an illness, it made me do it. I know that's not what you're saying.
No.
But it sounds like that's what you're saying.
The only thing.
Explain that to me?
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm saying is, had he said, "There's something inside of me that I can't control, and I need to find a way to get help for it," it's basically surrendering. In AA and in NA, you basically admit to the fact that you're powerless. You're powerless over mm-hmm. your substance. And you give everything to your higher power. Okay? Mm-hmm. So you're powerless mm-hmm. over what it's basically that same concept, except for you're powerless over your disease. And if you were to go to the parole board and say, "Listen, I have an issue. I don't know how to solve it. I'm telling you that I need to be in a long-term therapy program with a psychologist. And I'm not a threat to society, but I do know that I need to be closely watched after, that I do need to be in a structured environment, that I have a plan for this structured environment, that I plan to be far away from my mother and my sister, that I don't plan to maintain contact with them, that I plan to be a working member of society, and this is how. That this is how I plan to control my rage, that this is how I plan to control this, that I know I have these issues, and this is how I plan to suppress them. And that I know I need some sort of psychiatric drug in order to get by." Then that's showing self-awareness of an issue. He never mm-hmm. never showed self-awareness of a mental illness. He denied it the entire time. In fact, he would not only did he deny it, but he was blatantly angry about it. And he was blatantly angry at the mm-hmm. psychiatrist who would say, "I know he's not there's no psychosis here, but there's an issue. He is a danger to society." So, or at least a moderate danger to society. So, mm-hmm. so that's what he would get upset at. He would get upset at the psychiatrist. He didn't get upset with himself. He didn't say, "Okay, there's an issue here. I need to figure out a way." And he never went back and said, "Well, how?" He did go back and say, "How can I correct it?" And he said, "Well, I guess I just need to accept their decision." But he never really truly went in there and said, "Okay, I've formulated a plan. I know what I need. I've had this self-retrospection, and I formulated a plan, and this is what I'm going to do. What do you think?" Mm-hmm. Had mm-hmm. he done that, he would have been a free man back in, 2007, maybe even 2005.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know, and I just, for your listeners here, I want to point out that this book is just a little bit over 300 pages. So even though we've talked on and on about it, it is not like 1,000-page book.
No,
There's a lot of information in a short, within that time, a lot goes on. So the only thing I would say, I think you have a very strong point. I really do. I know that he, at different times, he was on Prozac. He was taking medication.
Yes.
He did have counselors working with him.
Right.
And I just want to put that out there. Now, whether he verbalized that in,
but
whether he specifically what you're saying, you know?
A lot of times, Leslie, a lot of times people with, and this, I'm not a doctor, so I'll tell you this right off the bat. I'm not a doctor. I can't speak for this, and this may be inaccurate. Okay. Prozac works for some people who have a personality disorder. It doesn't work for other people who have that. Mm-hmm. Everybody's chemistry is different. So it might have worked for him. It might not have worked for him. I don't know. I can't say. Mm-hmm. So it would have been, he would have had to have been under either a psychiatrist or psychologist care, or under a doctor's care, and have tried different psychiatric medications to see what it was that would have suppressed different things like the rages he was going through. Because he did mention, even after he had been on Prozac, that he was still, when he would get down, he was experiencing the rages again. He was experiencing different things again. So obviously, even though he had been on Prozac, he was still feeling those rages.
It's complicated.
It is complicated. Sure. It is complicated. And that's why I say everybody has somebody in their family or has a friend like this, or has a loved one like this, or has an acquaintance like this that they know, that they go, you know what? It's like I say something and they turn it around, and I tell them the sky is blue and they say, that's great. I love the fact that the clouds are green today. And you go, what the F are you talking about? And you go, what is wrong with you? And they pop off at the smallest thing, and you go, why are you not understanding what I'm saying? Or they go off and they do their own thing, and you think, what is it that's wrong with you? And you have to realize that sometimes it's nature versus nurture. And is it that people are wired a certain way and we can't do anything about it? Or is it that they can fight this and be something different at the end? What was wonderful about Dwayne at the end of this is that he was still fighting. And that's why I encourage people to go get this book, The Decision to Kill, is because at the end of this book, he's still fighting. There's a passage in this book I absolutely love, because I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, and at the age of 40, he's absolutely loving Brett Favre, who he said, he writes his mother Cheri and says, Mom, I've started to take up a new hero, Brett Favre, who played for the Green Bay Packers and then played for the Jets, and now he's on the Minnesota Vikings, and he's 39 years old, and he's going to be 40, and he's out there and he's playing, and I'm almost 40 now, and I've taken him up as my hero, because if he can do it and get out there and do it, then I can get out there and do it. Well, I almost laughed when I read that, because Brett Favre ended up retiring after he was dumped on his head on a cold Minnesota winter night at TCF Bank Stadium. And he was battered, he was bruised, and almost left for dead on the TCF Bank Stadium field after his offensive line let him down. But that was the end of his career. But that's how, eventually we all go out in some way or another. But it was true. He had a hell of a season in 2009. It was something to behold. But we all have that one comeback. We all have that one comeback where, it's our time to shine. And Dwayne had that one comeback where it was his time to shine. And he was, by God, he was going to do it. And you know what? He got himself somewhat right, but at the same time he was slipping. You could see he was slipping. Mm-hmm. So it's a nature versus nurture story in there, Leslie, that I have to commend you, because you truly showed the battle of somebody who has borderline personality disorder. That even though they're trying, and you can see they're trying, there's not only a day-to-day battle, there's an hour-to-hour battle and a minute-by-minute battle. That they do such good things, but then you have the hour-by-hour where, during the day they're having such a good day, and then they could say something or they could do something that totally lands them, pardon my language, lands them in the shitter. Mm-hmm. And you read a passage in there where even their mindset turns negative, or somebody says something to them that gets construed the wrong way. And then their whole world turns black, And as I'm reading it, I go, God, I'm reading a lot of stuff here that, it reminds me of a few people I know, and I just go, geez, how do you help somebody like that? And then I wonder if Dwayne at the age of 16, even at the age of 5, could have been helped.
Well, there's a book that I read as doing research before I wrote the book. It's called Without Conscience, mm-hmm. and it's by I know his last name's here. I can't remember his first name, but he developed this this test for specifically for dealing with sociopaths, which Dwayne was diagnosed as sociopath. It's a very interesting book. Kind of asking a lot of the questions that you're bringing up. It talks about parents. Can you change them at any point? And that possibly they think that if a child is diagnosed with that early on, the parent can learn better techniques for dealing with situations that come up that are more effective, that are, there's not any absolutes here, it seems like, but that give the chances of maybe teaching the child to be aware of certain things in their behavior. I mean, it sounds like a lot of work for a parent on top of just ordinary parenting to have to kind of play psychologist to their kid. But otherwise, they grow up without it diagnosed, and then it's ingrained, and then it's regular behavior, and then they've set up problems, criminal or otherwise, relational, that's the way their life goes, unless there's some way to change it. Sometimes they say at 40, actually, that the behaviors seem to lessen. And so is that a maturity somehow? Is that chemical? They don't really know. But anyway, I found it interesting in reading that, wondering if, even if Cheri could find the help, would that have changed the outcome?
Yeah, I don't know. And then whether you believe sociopath, borderline personality disorder, I mean, whether you believe it's one of those that they believe that there's no true cure for, no matter if you take the edge off with medication or not, I mean, that's a lifelong issue. It's one that isn't cured. I mean, God bless Cheri, because there's, it's one of those things where in the book she even states, I promised to see him through till he was 18, but she went much further than that. Mm-hmm. Truly, she even though this man killed her husband, the love of her life, the light of her life, she still mm-hmm. issued forgiveness and found love for him and saw him through. But that, as you know, since you read the book, that did not come easy. No, it didn't. That was years. She did what she decided to do in regards to her relationship with him, still being angry, still being hurt, still almost hating him, really, for what he had done. He had taken her husband and taken her daughter's father. Yep. And yet, and through that commitment to him and to do what she viewed was the right thing, she, I'm not doing any spoilers, but it changed her. Yeah. And it changed him. Yeah. Yeah. It's grounds for canonization as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned. Yeah, she's special. She is indeed. She is a really special lady. Well, I want to thank you, Leslie, for writing this book, The Decision to Kill, because it's something that will open a lot of people's eyes, I think, and will really, I think, will if you've got a youngster out there who is confused, maybe needs a path to look at that shows them that, hey, you know what? It's not glamorous on that other side. That they need to think about what they're doing. This is a good book to read. It really is a good book to read because it ain't glamorous on the wild side. It just isn't. It just isn't. This is a convincing book that shows you that it's a hard row out there to be on if you decide that that's the direction you want to go. And I think truly when Dwayne was asked if his story wanted to be put out there, when Cheri wanted her story put out there, I think Cheri did the right thing in coming to you and wanting this story put out there. I think it was a bold, brave move to put the story out there because it is a painful, heart-wrenching story, but at the same time, it's a story that has a lot to say. It has a lot to teach and has a lot to be learned from. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And just as a sub-note here, there is a portion of each sale of each book that is going to fund a local organization called the Rock Recovery Center. It's a faith-based organization that deals with those that have substance abuse issues and their families. They offer services and just feel like Cheri, this book is a tribute to her and the story that she went through with Dwayne, and that would be something that would honor that effort, to help support a organization that would have been the kind of organization that could have helped her at that time. And Dwayne, as you recall, at the end was also talking about wanting to share his story. I mean, he said he wanted to. Cheri wanted him to, but then he got to where he wanted to talk some sense into people that were 16 years old and looking at life the way he did. And he wanted to share what had happened to him. Mm-hmm. So kind of both of their stories are told here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, God bless you, Leslie. I appreciate it. And again, we'll have a link to this book in the description of this program. You can pick it up at wildbluepress.com. And please pick up a copy of this book and read it. It's amazing. It's an amazing book. It's a story about nature versus nurture, redemption, and how difficult it is sometimes to be able to forgive, because it is a difficult thing. Leslie, thank you so much for being with us today on True Crime Tuesday. Leslie Ghiglieri has been our guest on True Crime Tuesday. Folks, it's time once again to lighten it up a little bit. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time you've all been waiting for, kids. It is time for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. Let's bring them in right now. You've been waiting for them all week long. You've been sitting there over the weekend going, I just can't wait to get my hands on that BCB, that big cuddly bear himself. Beer City Bruiser. Hey, Bruiser.
Hello, Tim. I'm glad everyone's been waiting for me for the whole week. It makes me feel welcome and wanted.
You said something over the weekend on a post, like an hour ago. You lost a match, and were you?
No, yeah. So on Sunday, I debuted for a company out here in North Carolina called AML.
Okay.
And they had God, they had about 300 people, I think, there,
Sure.
and they were all booing me. And
What?
they hated me, and
How
I
could
won my
they?
match, and they booed me, and
What?
it was great, and I was on top of the world, and I drove the hour home, and the first thing I'm going to do is pick up my dog poop, because we just got a brand new puppy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, tell us a little bit about the new puppy. The new puppy's name is?
Ziggy Star Pup.
Oh, look at that.
Named after, of course, Ziggy Stardust, the late, great David Bowie, because
Yeah.
both my wife and I are fans. And she is 12 weeks old. She's a boxer hound mix.
Aw.
And she's absolutely precious.
Aw, cutest name ever, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, we love David Bowie, and we wanted to do something to show him, you know, and it just fits her. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
She's just perfect. And then my cat and her are starting to get along, which is good. She's only been here for a week, and they're starting to actually share the same room together, which is a plus.
Uh-oh, cats and dogs living together.
Total anarchy.
That is total anarchy. Uh-oh. Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. Now, have you already been to Philly?
Yes. No. I go to Philly on Thursday.
Oh, on Thursday.
So
okay.
this Thursday I go to Philly. I was in Winston-Salem on Sunday, which is, like I said, about an hour and a half north of me.
Oh.
So it was debuting for a company called AML Wrestling, which by far is one of the best professional wrestling companies I work for.
Really?
Tracy's the promoter there. He puts on a great show, very family friendly, very affordable. He takes care of not only the boys in the back, but the fans too. And
Nice.
everything's professional. Everything looks good on camera. And then I got home and had to clean up dog poop. So,
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
well, that's what your family does. I remember I wrestled in Madison Square Garden. It was sold out. I was on top of the world. And then I get back and my wife says, well, you still have to do the dishes.
Oh. Isn't that how it always is, though?
Always.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like Ozzy Osbourne, like selling out Ozfest? Like, he's Ozzy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When he gets back and Sharon's like, clean up the dog poop.
Yeah, it keeps you humble.
It does. It does. And it makes me appreciate everything. And you know what? I love the little pup, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's true. Except for when he really lays it out there for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's really good where she hasn't gone in the house.
Well, that's good.
Which is great. And we've already taught her how to sit and shake.
Really?
And her favorite toy, Tim, you're going to love this. Her favorite toy is a stuffed beer.
Really?
And then it's on the inside, you can pull it out, and it's got like it's like one of those pop things where you can fold another skin around it, and it's a cheeseburger on the other side.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so every time I play with her, I'm like, I'm the Beer City Bruiser. Give me back my beer. And she growls, and we just play, and it's fun.
Aw, that's the cutest thing ever.
Yeah, it's hard, though, when you're sore from wrestling and you're all beat up and you got to get home and there's puppy energy everywhere because she doesn't have an off button.
Well, not yet anyways. I mean,
No,
that comes
I'm
with
used to
maturity.
I'm used to my cat that just lounges around and eats and poops, and that's it.
Yeah, but I mean, that's only going to last for so long, though,
Right, yeah.
You got to enjoy it while you have it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just how that is. Oh, look at that. Look at
There she is.
First appearance on the show. Look at that.
Ziggy Star Pup.
Hi, Ziggy.
And if you notice her collar, it's we got her the purple tag along with a green strap to represent the Joker.
Oh, look at that.
So we're covering all avenues with this one. We got pop culture, we got wrestling, we got comic books, music, everything.
Look at that. She is so cute. Look at that.
So if the fans want to see pictures of her, they can go on my Instagram or my Facebook or my Twitter. I've been sharing nonstop pictures. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, this is a weird week for dumb crime, stupid criminals, Bruiser. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. You were saying that off air.
Yeah, it's not
said
so
you were
much
kind of thrown off.
Yeah, not so much the ha-ha funny, which we had kind of an odd beginning to the program. We want to thank our guest again, Leslie Ghiglieri, with the book, The Decision to Kill. It was an interesting program, and it was a different program at that, talking about the nature versus nurture aspect of murderers. But we have an interesting Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, and we're going to play it this way. This is how we'll play it this way, my friend. The first few stories we'll play, you did what for what reason? That's how we'll attack the first few stories, because I really can't believe this happened, to be honest with you, with these first few stories. We'll start with, of course, we're going to start in Florida.
Well, we got to start in Florida.
You got to start in Florida. A Florida man is accused of slitting his wife's throat and killing her because she burned his passport.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
There's so much to unwrap in this story.
There is. And this guy looks like maybe the lights aren't all on when you take a look at him. He's only 21. That explains a lot.
Yeah.
He's a youngin' at that.
You said maturity helps, so.
It does. Maturity does help. A 21-year-old man was arrested this week for allegedly killing his wife and attempting to clean up the scene afterwards. According to the Altamonte Springs Police Department, on Tuesday, June 21st at 8:49 a.m., officers conducted a well-being check at a residence on Ballard Street. When they arrived, officers and members of the Seminole County Fire Department found I believe it's Kine Pham, deceased in her apartment. Police say that Pham's husband, Ki-Chen Yang, was not at the residence when they arrived, but they identified him as a person of interest. He was located soon after and taken into custody for questioning. According to the arrest report, Yang was speaking to his employer, Michael Rathel, and allegedly told him he had just murdered his wife. Is that something you normally tell your employer?
No, it's not like you clock in and go, hey, I'm here for my shift. Oh, by the way, murdered my wife last night.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about certain things you murdered, like, I was playing PlayStation last night, murdered it,
That you talk about at work.
Yeah, I was out.
You don't normally talk about murdering wives.
Out hitting a few softballs last night, murdered them, At
the bowling last night, bowling alley. Murdered those pins.
Murdered them. Not the wife, though.
No, you should never.
No.
Well, first of all, you shouldn't murder your wife.
Right. That's I believe that's a commandment. I think.
I think it is too.
I'm not quite sure. You're breaking one or two there. Yang then allegedly called Rathel's son and informed him that he had stabbed his wife, killing her, and was attempting to clean up the evidence. Boy, somebody who can't.
Was he out? He just called to say, hey, man, I did this. I'm cleaning it up now. Don't worry about it. Everything will be okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll be in.
I'll be in for work.
Yeah, I'll be in. I'm just cleaning up the evidence from a murder.
Or do you think he was trying to take a PTO day?
Mental health day.
Yeah, like he called and says, hey, I need some time off.
Yeah.
And the boss goes, well, what's the reason? Is it a doctor's appointment? Is it a legal thing? What do you got going on? He says, well, I murdered my wife and I got to clean up the crime scene, so... That's a day.
I think as an employer, I go, you did what? Why? How? For what?
You fire the guy right then?
No. I want him to come in so I can get the cops there too. So we can.
So you look good in the news,
right? Well, not just look good in the news. I want to figure out how this all happened.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
When police made their way into the apartment, they found Pham lying in a pool of blood in a bathtub. Oh my God.
Oh.
She reportedly had a laceration on the left side of her neck and blood was running down her body. The arrest report says Pham's stomach was also pooled with blood. Oh, my dear God.
Oh, so he stabbed her in the stomach, too.
Yikes. A firefighter pronounced her dead at 9:13 a.m. Police found cleaning materials and rubber gloves in the main hallway of the apartment. When investigators spoke with Yang, he reportedly admitted to killing his wife with a knife. She reportedly started crawling down the wall after being stabbed and tried to move closer to the door. Yang allegedly picked her up and moved her to the bathroom, where he played her favorite music and held her hand for about 10 minutes.
That's not creepy at all.
Pardon the language, but how sick is this fuck?
Oh, God. This is like serial killer movie sick, like she's crawling down the hallways, following behind, and then he plays the music and creepy.
After his wife died, Yang allegedly began trying to clean up the scene and told police he could feel himself getting more and more angry before he became violent with Pham, and that he could have stopped short of killing her. Well, he didn't stop short. He did.
Yeah.
A detective asked Yang why he did not kill her, and He reportedly said it was not how he was raised. He allegedly told the detectives he goes all the way. I guess he does.
Yeah.
Raffle, the man who called 911, told detectives he called Yang at 8:26 a.m. to see why he wasn't at work yet. Yang reportedly told Raffle he was mad at Pham because she burned his passport, so he had done unspeakable things and killed her.
What? I could have helped him here, and the boss calls, well, anyway, at work, well, I got a real bad case of diarrhea. I don't think I'm coming in today.
Yeah.
And then go about your business.
Yeah.
But to each his own.
Yeah. Well, at least the guy tells the truth. I mean.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
He was raised that way, Tim. That's why.
I guess. Yang was booked into the Seminole County Jail for first-degree premeditated murder and tampering with physical evidence. He's being held without bond, as he should be. My God.
They should let him know you can always apply for a new passport.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's just been, I don't know, misplaced, burned.
Yeah. It's not that expensive. It's a pretty easy process once you have it because they don't have to run a background check on you anymore.
Yeah, they just give you a new copy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
You're okay there, buddy.
Yep.
Yeah. We go to Tennessee. You did what for why? Again, this one of those stories. Tennessee house manager accused of killing his tenant with a machete over a parking dispute.
Oh, come on.
Again, you did what for, huh?
Yeah. What is this world coming to where it's such a petty thing like a parking spot?
I don't know. A 53-year-old house manager was recently indicted after allegedly killing a tenant following a parking dispute, according to a news release from the Shelby County District Attorney's Office. On the night of September 17th, 2021, Leiford Anderson got into an argument with his new tenant, 52-year-old Edward Brooks, in the 1700 block of Marjorie Street over Brooks parking on the grass in front of the rooming house. At approximately 1:30 a.m., the dispute reportedly erupted a second time and became physical. Anderson allegedly struck Brooks with a machete several times in the head, face, and forearm and calf. Officers responded to the home and found Brooks unresponsive in the hallway. According to the district attorney's office, he was reportedly pronounced dead at the scene. On Tuesday, June 21st, the district attorney's office said Anderson was officially indicted on one count of second-degree murder. He remains held in the Shelby County Jail without bond.
I think he needed to watch that episode of Seinfeld where George and the other guy are trying to get the perfect parking spot, and they literally just back into each other, and they're just sitting there arguing. That's how you handle it. You don't attack somebody with a machete.
Yeah. That's a little too far. And
I like how he added in, I'm stabbing him in the calf, too. Like, okay, I got your face and your arms. There's one for your calf.
I missed a lower region somewhere in there. We need to complete the trifecta.
Do you think he took it from, like, remember how you could play Operation? They show you the guy.
Yeah.
And he's got all the things. Maybe he was running through that in his head, like, okay, I got him here, his nose beeped. Got him here, his nose beeped. Oh, I got to get him here. Okay.
And then he gets the big, nah, because he hit the border there.
Yep.
Yeah. Another, you did what for, huh? For why? Story. 16-year-old allegedly is arrested for fatally stabbing a 14-year-old in a Walmart parking lot. It doesn't surprise me it happened in Walmart.
No.
It's just a 16-year-old allegedly fatally stabbing a 14-year-old. And this is, as you alluded to, a Seinfeld episode over nothing.
Yeah.
We don't have a reason.
He just stabbed just to stab.
She
stabbed. Oh, it's a she.
Yeah. A 16-year-old faces a murder charge after she allegedly attacked another teen in a parking lot this week. According to the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department on Monday, June 20th, the suspect, Isabel Jackson, I believe it's Jackson or Jackson, I'm sorry, and the victim, Malia Powell, reportedly got into an argument inside the Walmart at 3458 Dickerson Pike. I thought that said Pole for a minute. Dickerson Pole would be too funny. At around 10 p.m., the two reportedly continued their disagreement in the parking lot near the WeGo bus stop. Pardon me, I don't know why my voice is cracking today. I think I'm going through puberty again.
What is a 14-year-old doing in Walmart at 10 o'clock at night?
I don't know, but they're both riding the bus. I know that much. Yeah. And they evidently like to knife fight.
I guess.
Yeah. Jackson allegedly asked Powell to fight, then stabbed her with a pocket knife and fled towards Droverside Drive.
That's dirty boxing, Bobby. That's dirty boxing.
That is dirty boxing. Police do not believe Powell and Jackson knew each other. So they didn't even know each other.
They didn't even know each other? They just met in Walmart?
They met in Walmart, went out to the bus stop. One said, hey, you want to fight? The other said, sure. And then the one stabbed the other.
Like, oh, you're not going to expect this? Stab, stab, stab.
Yeah. On Thursday, June 23rd, Nashville police announced they located and arrested Jackson for criminal homicide. Can you imagine that? You're 16. You're like, hey, you want to fight? 14-year-old goes, sure. You go, okay, ready? Put him up. Stab, 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 stab. Now you're in for homicide.
Yeah, back in my day when we fought, we used our fists.
That sounds very Friday of you, by the way. When you fight, you use these. You live to fight again, Craig. I love John Witherspoon. It's so bad he's not with us
he's so
anymore.
good.
Yeah.
He is so good. Did we lose him? He's still
he
around,
died. No, he died a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was, everything he did was hilarious.
Yeah, he was
I remember him in the Wayans Brothers TV show, and it was just so funny.
Yep. He was the dad and everything, but he was so funny.
Yes. He didn't stab anybody when he challenged him to a fight.
No, he didn't go, hey, Craig, want to fight? Stab, 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 stab. No.
No.
He put up his dukes. He used his fist, and he lived to fight again.
Yeah, exactly.
Put the gun down, Craig.
Well, at least it's a positive there wasn't a gun involved. It was just a switchblade. If we have to silver lining this.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. No guns allowed there in the Nashville Walmart parking lot.
Just with switchblades.
Bring your cutters, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And find somebody you don't even know. And just challenge them.
Yeah, whoever's available.
Do you think for some reason she just ran across the Michael Jackson Beat It video and thought, hey, this looks like fun. They're dancing. They're having a good time.
Or the Eat It video, one or the other.
That movie's coming out, so that could be.
Oh, God, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, thanks for that bad memory.
No problem.
We go on to the Mother of the Year award, or Grandmother of the Year, with these next two stories. Don't ever let your mom tell you she doesn't have a favorite.
My mom always tells me she doesn't have a favorite, but I know she has a favorite. It's my brother, not me.
Mothers always have a favorite.
Oh, I know.
And
I'm a parent.
This next... do you have a favorite? Do you want to say who it is?
I can't say because this is public and people can hear it, but off the air I'll tell you.
Oh, come on. Don't wuss out like that. Tell us.
I love all my children the same.
Don't say that.
I'll tell you what. My son Dakota is my favorite because he's my favorite son because he's my only son.
Ah, jeez.
I tell him that all the time because all of them are always asking me, who's your favorite? Who's your favorite? So I tell you what. I said, Dakota's my favorite son. And they're like, that's not fair. He's your only son. I said, yep.
All right. Well, turns out that a boy died this past week after being left in a hot car while his mom allegedly rushed to set up his sister's birthday party.
What? Just take the kid with you.
I guess it doesn't work that way in that family.
Yeah, I guess not.
She could care less about the boy. We go to Texas and Harris County, where a young boy died this week after being left in a hot car. We normally don't report on infant deaths or kids' deaths, but this just goes to show your mom doesn't love you. I'm just saying.
Well, I don't think the mom loves the daughter either because that's going to completely ruin her birthday for the rest of her life.
Maybe not. Maybe she wasn't a big fan of her brother.
That could be.
Yeah.
That could be.
The young boy died this week after being left in a hot car for hours. Bruiser.
Come on.
Not even a, hey, you want to get out and get a drink of water?
Yeah. Just bring the kid with you or get a babysitter.
Yeah. Hours. While his mother allegedly rushed to get ready for her daughter's birthday party. On Monday, June 20th, Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez tweeted that deputies responded to a residence on Blair Hill Lane that afternoon and found a child deceased inside a vehicle. They reportedly determined that he had been left inside the car for several hours and was declared dead at the scene. Gonzalez told KHOU-TV that the boy, his sister, and his mother went to a store because they were preparing to celebrate a birthday party that afternoon. When they got home, the mother and 8-year-old sister reportedly got out of the car to prepare the get-together and allegedly did not realize the boy was not with them.
Well, they just forget the boy?
I guess.
How old is the boy, does it say?
Let's see here. According to Gonzalez, the boy knew how to unbuckle himself, and the mother believed he was doing the same thing today.
No.
He was old enough to unbuckle himself.
But then he's still got a head count. I always did the head. Here, when I had my children, I always did the head count because Home Alone always popped in my head with my kids. Because you know how they do the head count in Home Alone?
Yeah.
And they count the neighbor instead of Kevin, and then Kevin gets left behind. Anytime I went anywhere with my kids when they were little, I'd always do a head count like 3 or 4 times because I didn't want to have a Home Alone situation.
How do you not tell your daughter, go get your brother?
Yeah, there's my oldest always, if I had my hands full, hey, can you grab your little brother? Can you grab your little sister? It's not hard.
Oh. The sheriff said the family was driving a rental vehicle, so the child might not have been as familiar with the settings. It doesn't matter. Go get your brother.
Yeah.
Houston Public Media reports Houston and the entire state of Texas are in the midst of a heat wave with temperatures reaching triple digits in many areas.
Everybody's having a heat wave right now. And the simple fact is, rental car or not, your child you should always be checking on. Always my children are out of the house now, and I still text them every day just to say hi and check in on them, or you know what I mean? Just because I miss them.
And by the way, get out of the car.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you tell them on the text. Get out of the car.
I'm just going to text them right now. I'm just going to text them all, hey, don't forget, get out of the car.
Yeah. It's not immediate. Here's the kicker. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
It's not immediately clear whether the boy's mother will face any charges.
Oh, come on. She's got to face charges.
No, they don't know.
They've got to at least give her manslaughter. It has to be. It's a child passed away.
They don't know.
Due to her negligence.
They don't know. They're thinking about it.
Well, you and I, we'll tell them. Prosecutor.
Yeah, they were busy with the birthday party.
If they listen to the show, we want you to prosecute her.
Yeah, we wish you'd go after. Here's another one we think you should go after. Another Mother of the Year.
Okay.
Just south of you down there in South Carolina, a mother is accused of abandoning her 3 children on an island. I know it's a joke that you say, you know what, I'm going to leave you kids on an island somewhere and go enjoy myself. I heard that plenty when I was growing up.
Too.
Yeah.
It was I'm going to leave you on an island somewhere. I brought you into this world. I can take you out.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times I heard if I could just leave you on an island somewhere, I would. But this mother did. A mother was arrested after allegedly abandoning her children on a Lake Hartwell Island, according to a news release from the Anderson County Sheriff's Office, who said, wow, we always dreamed of that too. The incident was initially being investigated as a missing persons case after Courtney Taylor was last seen leaving Cemetery Island. Oh, there's a...
Oh, it's called Cemetery Island.
Oh, Jesus. Boy,
I think it's like an old urban legend. Like if you don't start behaving, you're gonna get left behind on Cemetery Island.
She must have threatened him every day, like 10 times a day with that. Yeah, must have. Deputies responded to the lake on Monday, June 13th at approximately 3:45 p.m. and found 3 stranded children ages 12, 13, and 15. Boy, but you got to think they were raising enough hell.
Oh, yeah. This was a total, what is that, Lord of the Flies scenario.
Yeah. She must have said, guess what? Lord of the Flies is coming to our house. The children were allegedly camping on the island, and the night before with their mother, Taylor, and her boyfriend, Eric Elrod. Kind of sounds like a dweeb, doesn't he?
That guy sounds like a douche.
Eric Elrod. The children reportedly told authorities their mother said she was going to get water, and she left the island with her boyfriend in their car, but never returned. Yeah, we're going to get water.
Do you think the mother looked at the boyfriend and goes, hey, you want to see a really good joke? Watch us. We're going to go get water.
Hey, you kids, you'll be all right. We're going to go get water. We'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
You just sit there by the fire and enjoy yourselves. On Tuesday, June 14th, Taylor was arrested on 3 counts of unlawful neglect of a child. She was released the following day, according to WYFF, the WIF.
A whiff.
Elrod is wanted for distribution of methamphetamine and other charges. I'm guessing I know why they snuck off.
There it is. Yep. I get why she left them behind now.
Yep. and other charges by the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. My guess is, well, she's not smiling with teeth in her booking photo. She's got kind of a frown. So she ain't showing any teeth. So my guess is there's probably a lack of.
I don't think she has any teeth. And now I think, do you think water was code for meth to the boyfriend?
I think so. Had they been sitting there with Helen Keller, they would have went meth, Helen, meth, instead of water, Helen, water. And that's how they would have done that.
Yeah. I can't imagine Helen Keller on meth.
Oh God, come on, don't do that. No,
I'm not going to. That's a sensitive subject, but still.
So on the other side of Mother's Day too, it wouldn't. Yeah. You did what because of why? This would be the last of these stories.
Okay.
You ready for this? I don't know.
We've had home runs so far, so I can't wait.
Police say restaurant workers shot in an argument over mayo.
Oh, I heard this is Atlanta, right? I think it was, right? In a subway?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I was hoping I was going to send this to you. I'm glad you got it.
A man who complained there was too much mayonnaise on a sandwich opened fire at an Atlanta sandwich shop. Killing one employee and injuring another. The shooting happened at around 6:30 p.m. Sunday at a Subway restaurant attached to a gas station in downtown Atlanta. You never want to hit the pumps when you're shooting at a gas station.
No. That'll explode.
It will. Police said the man argued with the two female workers before shooting them.
I said, no, light mail. That's not light mail.
You know, at that point, I just throw the sandwich away and make a new one if the guy pulls a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, here, you can have it. Or I'd be like, why don't you come back here and you make it the way you want it?
At that point, I just throw the sandwich away and go, let's do this again. We'll go step by step. I will do everything the way you wish, and we'll go real slow.
That's how it is at Subway, though. They do it your way. Like, when they're putting the mayo on, they're like, is this enough?
Yeah, but they went too far. They did too much.
Right. So, okay, yeah, I guess he could have.
Yeah, no.
Unless he said stop and they kept going like, ha, look at us, ha.
I've been in the presence of some pretty indignant Subway workers before.
Some heavy mailers.
Yeah, they like to lay it on thick.
Yeah.
Either that or like, oh, you want mayo? Uh-huh.
You're forgetting that they pounded on the boom, boom. Yep. Phenomena. There's so much going on right now. You must have hit the.
Oh, did I freeze you?
We just had Flash Gordon and Phenomena.
Oh, did I fire a bunch of things off?
Yeah, and then while you're right behind it, you keep hearing you make the squirting sound. It was a great mashup.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry. I must have.
No, don't be sorry. It actually turned into gold.
I must have been so mad I fired off the button bar. My button bar isn't even selected right now.
I hope that came across on the recording because
it probably did. If you heard
my headphones, I heard it.
I didn't hear it, so you must. If you heard it, it played over the file.
I love it. I think it's great. Keep it.
Okay, well we have to. We
because
can't.
In the background, you just hear you going.
And then you hear dun 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 dun.
Yep.
So Flash Gordon is making sandwiches at Subway.
And he loves mayo.
And he loves mayo. He lays on the mayo thick. All right. Well, that's the way it's got to be.
Yeah.
Anyways, where were we? Oh, yes. So according to Atlanta Police Deputy Chief Charles Hampton Jr., he told reporters on Monday, this was a very tragic situation that did not have to occur. He said the 36-year-old man believed to be the shooter was arrested Sunday evening after someone whom police are not identifying provided them with information. Hampton said police are not immediately releasing the suspected shooter's name because of the ongoing investigation. That, and they don't want to frighten the shit out of other subway workers. The woman who died was 26 years old. The other woman, 24, remained in critical condition Monday, Hampton said. The injured woman's 5-year-old son was in the restaurant at the time. Oh, my God.
Oh, that's terrible.
And Hampton lamented the trauma that the child will have to deal with. It's frustrating that we have a 26-year-old female who is no longer with us, Hampton said. It frustrates me that we had an individual with a firearm who decided that was the answer to resolve a conflict over a sandwich. It just breaks my heart to know that someone has the audacity to point a weapon and shoot someone for as little as too much mayonnaise on a sandwich, restaurant co-owner Willie Glenn told WSB-TV.
That you just ask for a refund. You don't have to shoot somebody.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, or just ask them to make it over.
Exactly, and they will.
Yeah.
You know, they might huff and puff, but they'll make it over. You don't need to shoot them. I hope that kid just mails mayo packets to that guy every day while he's in prison.
That would be a cruel joke, wouldn't it?
But, you know, the 5-year-old lost his mother, so his revenge is he mails mayo packets every single day while the guy's in prison.
Yeah, it's fitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We continue on. We're still in Georgia. A Rome woman is charged with hitting, kicking, and spitting on police at an Atrium Health. It says at Atrium Health Floyd. I have no idea what Atrium Health Floyd is.
Atrium Health is like, it's the healthcare down here in the South.
Okay. 21-year-old Madison Alice Kreider was arrested this week after reports said she attacked numerous law enforcement officers and others at Atrium Health Floyd. Police stated that they were dispatched after Kreider bit another person on the finger during a verbal altercation. That's a new one.
Well, he was probably pointing in her face.
And she just took a bite out of the crime.
Trust me, I've been getting puppy bites, so that's what goes through my head.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I point at the puppy, she bites, she nips at me because it's a puppy.
Yeah. While being placed under arrest, Kreider is accused of grabbing 3 officers. Police went on to say that while being placed in a patrol car, she pushed and kicked the officers and the car, causing damage to their equipment. After being removed, Kreider began to spit and kick at police. Don't they put the spit hood on you after that?
Yeah, if you spit, they'll put the spit hood on you, and then when they get to the jail, they'll put you in the chair.
Ah, yes, okay. So she began to spit and kick at police while they were attempting to put a face covering on her. There you go.
There it is, yep. And they probably hogtied her, too.
Yeah, well, she had it coming. During the altercation, she removed an officer's Apple Watch with the intent to steal it.
What? She's not in enough trouble. She just wants to add another charge.
Well, they are nice watches.
But they are. I agree.
I'll give her that.
At this point in time, she's already in so much. Maybe that's what she thought. I have nothing to lose.
That's a nice
Apple Watch to gain.
Yeah. I bet you I could smuggle that in an orifice on the way in.
My who?
Oh, God. Reports added that Kreider was also with someone who had a protective order against her in the parking lot of the hospital. Oh, that's not good either.
No.
Kreider is charged with 7 counts of simple assault, simple battery against a police officer, felony obstruction, aggravated stalking, disorderly conduct, 4 counts of misdemeanor obstruction, 3 counts of felony obstruction of police, and 4 counts of simple battery, and a partridge in a pear tree. So there you go.
Just slap it all on her.
That's right. And the Apple Watch, because, it's kind of trendy.
Yeah.
Reason number 4,372 why you shouldn't let your kids go to a party.
Why shouldn't I let my kids go to a party?
Probably because the substitute teacher and the track coach are recording your kids as they're doing the nasty.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
So they got together and thought, hey, I got this great business plan.
I got a business plan.
Whenever these kids have this giant party, we'll record them and sell it.
Kind of, yeah. It happened in Pennsylvania. The substitute teacher and a track coach are accused of recording students engaged in sexual activities at a party. We go to Harrisburg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've been to Harrisburg.
Yeah, me too. A 20-year-old substitute teacher and track coach stands accused of providing minors with alcohol and taking explicit videos and photos of students during a party. So he even pumped them full of alcohol to get them going.
How did he get it? He's 20.
Fake ID.
Well, I mean, I know how to do it, but it's like he illegally acquired alcohol to give these kids. Mm-hmm. Then he parties with them.
Yep.
Then records them doing the nasty.
Well, let's go through the story, and I'll get you the specific details. But
I'm just trying to figure out. You did it, huh? Why?
According to a news release from the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, Peyton Harris, who worked as a substitute teacher at, what is the name of the school? Is it Juniata? I don't know. That's a good one.
Junita.
It's Juniata. Pennsylvania people can email me.
Juniata
High School?
Juniata? Sure.
I think so. And Newport High School, I know of that one because they're cigarettes. And they're menthols.
And if you flip the pack upside down, you get the Nike swish.
That's right. There you go. And served as the assistant manager for the Juniata track team, during the 2021-22 school year, hosted a party at his home for minors. Harris allegedly provided alcohol to the minors and took explicit photographs and videos of those juveniles engaging in sexual activity without their knowledge or consent. He then reportedly shared the images with other people on social media. On June 22nd, the Attorney General's office said Harris was charged with sexual abuse of children, photographing sexual abuse of children, dissemination sexual abuse of children, child pornography, invasion of privacy, corruption of minors, furnishing alcohol to a minor, and carrying a false ID card. See?
There it is. Yep,
there
you're right.
Is.
Fake ID.
In a statement, Attorney General Josh Shapiro said Mr. Harris was trusted to take care of and empower minors, and instead he exploited them. Shapiro added, "These charges are very disturbing. My office has a zero tolerance policy for abuse of children and will prosecute the defendant to the fullest extent of the law." The Attorney General's office has asked for the public's help in gathering any information regarding the case or any other incidents related to Harris.
Good. Throw the book at him.
Yeah, most definitely.
I mean, in high school, did you ever have a cool teacher in high school? I mean, not this cool, obviously.
Speaking of sexual assault on children, we did, although two of them ended up, believe it or not, dating students.
Oh.
Yeah.
So my wife had one where he was a cool teacher, mm-hmm. and he'd flirt all the time, but he waited till the girl turned 18 before he married her.
What? Really?
Yeah. So it was all legal. It's still disgusting.
Yeah.
But it was still all legal. Like when she told me that story, I'm like, what? No, that's not good.
We had, in all fairness, we had a cool, I was on the school newspaper, and our school newspaper advisor was really cool. His name was Harry Jackson. But he was, I know how you almost thought I said Harry Johnson there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
No, Harry Jackson. He was really cool.
Here comes the dun-dun.
He was the only teacher who would show you The Godfather uncut in
really?
class. Yeah, because he had a newspaper advisors meeting at the end of the year. And there's nothing to do at the end of the year. You don't have an issue to put out.
Right.
So he was like, "Oh, I got a film for you, class, and here we have a substitute teacher." And actually, this is kind of a funny story if you want me to go deep into
please.
it. Okay, so it's just a short story, really. I don't know if I should tell this story because it's a little inappropriate. But so he had this advisors meeting that he had to go to. It's a national advisors meeting, national newspaper advisors meeting for high school newspaper advisors. So he got a substitute teacher. Well, we had a kid in class. I won't say his name, obviously, because at the time he's a minor, and he had a disability, and he had Tourette's syndrome. And we never really took advantage of this person, but he was kind of a troublemaker too. He liked getting noticed.
Okay, he liked to be center of attention type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he also had kind of a dirty sense of humor. Now,
which is okay.
Now, knowing me, I tend to have a little dirty sense of humor too.
Yeah.
So I gravitated to the kid, but I never encouraged him. I never gave him well, I shouldn't say I never encouraged him.
I was gonna say, come on.
I never gave him ideas.
Okay. You just fueled the ideas.
I just told him whether I thought it was funny or not. Right?
You're right. Okay.
Okay. So we knew the substitute was coming in about 3 weeks to a month beforehand. Okay. And this is like the last week of school. And Harry was going to come back the last 3 days of school. Okay. So like the first couple of days of the week, we were going to be seeing The Godfather.
Okay.
And we had like most kids have an hour class. Ours was an hour and a half with a half-hour lunch. So technically it was a 2-hour block.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And during that block, we had free reign over the school. We had a pass to go anywhere because we had to go interview or photograph people or whatever. I
remember our newspaper kids, they always had it at the last hour of the day and they could just go anywhere. And I remember people trying to get into it just as a free class and a free hour, but the teacher was a stickler, like, nope, you have to prove you want to be here.
Yeah, ours was the middle of the day, I think, to avoid that.
Okay.
So we were told about, we were going to see this special movie or whatever, and we didn't know what it was. But when Harry told us the week before that we were going to see The Godfather, we were like, wow, The Godfather, that's really cool.
Yeah.
We were thinking we were going to see an edited version, but we got, the old film reels.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he had film reels brought in of The Godfather. So this was pretty special. So this kid comes up to me and he says, hey, Tim, he kind of sounded like Ronald Reagan, like a bad Ronald Reagan impression. So he said, hey, Tim. I was like, yeah. And he goes, do you think maybe when this sub comes in, do you think maybe it would be a really funny idea if I, like, during lunch, because we took lunch first.
Okay.
So he goes, do you think maybe during lunch I could sneak in and I have a bunch of my dad's old Playboys and penthouses and some really, really dirty magazines. And do you think if I just posted parts all over the screen when the sub went to pull it down and you just saw a bunch of lady parts all over the screen, that'd be really funny? And this time I didn't say yes. This time,
really?
No. This time I went, no, I don't think that'd be very funny. Besides, we're going to see The Godfather. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I said, no, you probably should lay off.
And there's lady parts in The Godfather, so.
Yeah. So, we'll see him eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, no, so-and-so, you should probably lay off. This is going to be a cool movie.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, oh, okay. Well, I was just thinking it'd be really funny. I'm like, no. Then he brought it up another time. Oh, do you think maybe if I went and got those magazines and, it'd be really funny? And I was like, no, so-and-so, it really wouldn't be that funny because we're going to see
he's bound and determined to make this funny to you.
He was really going to make a big splash, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so he really wanted to make this exit to the school year. Now, keep in mind, he wasn't a senior. We were seniors. And
he wasn't?
No.
So he had to come back?
No, he was only a junior, I think.
Oh, so he had to come back.
So he had to come back, yeah.
So you're actually protecting the kid without him knowing.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell him, he had already had a tumultuous year. He'd already gotten in trouble, like big time trouble a couple times that year.
Right.
So I'm trying to tell him, cool your heels, it'll be all right.
Yeah. It's The Godfather.
It's The Godfather. You're going to see The Godfather in class. Who sees Godfather in a high school class?
I took film classes and we didn't watch The Godfather in high school class.
Right. We didn't see it in college.
Yeah, no, neither did we. You're right.
Yeah. So, and I took an approach to film class, and it was like a film study class in college, and we didn't even watch. We watched Grapes of Wrath. I fell asleep. So he kind of mentions it a third time. I'm like, no, so-and-so, shut it down. Don't think about it. We're going to see The Godfather. Okay, So comes Monday. We're going to see The Godfather. We're all excited. We're in lunch. We're eating. Somebody mentions, hey, have you seen so-and-so around? I don't see him at the lunch table. We're all kind of looking around. Nope, so-and-so isn't around. That's probably nothing. He's probably just, decided to skip. And I went, oh, with like 7 minutes left of lunch, I went, hey, you don't think, he's been bringing up, the thing with the screen. No, there's no way he did it. We kept telling him, don't do it. Don't do it. Because I wasn't the only one he came up to. He came up to a bunch of other people.
So he just wanted somebody to go along with it. Right.
And everybody said no. We told him no. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And we were like, should we go back to class and see if he did it? No. We got like 5 minutes left. All right. So we walk in and there he is sitting at his desk, his table. We're like, hey. He's like, hey.
Does he have a shit-eating grin on his face?
No. He's playing it cool.
He's playing cool. Okay. He's cool as a cucumber.
So we're like, how's everything going? Ooh, it's going good. It's going good. You didn't do anything today, did you? What do you mean? You didn't play any pranks today, did you? No. You sure? No. What'd you have for lunch? Oh, I just sat here in the room and I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Okay. Yeah, I'll believe you.
So we're sitting there and the sub walks in the class just as we ask him, what'd you have for lunch? She comes in and says, hi, class. My name is Mrs. So-and-so, and I'll be your sub for the next few days. Harry really has a great treat for you. This is really great. I've never heard of this ever in all the years I've been teaching. He managed to get a hold of a print of The Godfather for you guys to watch. This is amazing. I can't believe that you guys are going to be watching The Godfather. All I can say is enjoy. I'm glad that, I'm glad that we're going to have a great couple of days, and he'll be back on Wednesday. And we'll, here it is. Guys, here's The Godfather. And she pulls down the screen, and there it is in living color, parts all over the screen. And we're sitting there with our mouths open. Not a word. You could have heard a pin drop, except for so-and-so in the corner going. And the teacher turns around and she screams louder than I've ever heard somebody scream in my life, and runs out of the room. And about 7 minutes later, in runs our principal.
Oh, no.
Who did this? And so-and-so stands up and holds his hand up and goes, oh, I did.
He was like proud.
He was proud of it. He was proud of it. And we were like, son of a bitch.
Did you get to at least watch The Godfather?
Nope.
Oh, he ruined it. Oh.
We were to find reading materials and sit there silently.
Oh.
He ruined the movie
how you
for
make
us.
Friends.
Nope.
Not how you make friends at all.
Nope. We told him, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Oh, that poor guy. Well, not poor guy. You guys are the ones that suffered.
Yep. So you're asking me, Tim, where does that all go to? No, nowhere. No. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yep.
Yeah, I forget what my point is. My point had to do with substitute teachers. Cool teachers.
Yep.
Cool teachers. So that was the only real cool teacher who didn't get in trouble. We had two teachers, and I won't say what they did because the people in my school will know from the year that I graduated who I'm talking about. But let's just say there were a couple of teachers, and they were very well known, and they did date a couple of the female students. And they got away with it.
Oh, no. See, that's worse.
Yeah.
Because they're predators.
They are predators. And it turns out that a few years after we graduated, one of them was essentially caught and was let go. The other one managed to get away with it and left, went to a different school.
Good. Yeah. Not good at all.
No. So, yeah. So there's that. So we can move on now. We've got 3 stories left in Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. But it's interesting. I don't know that I should open this up to emails if people want to send emails of predator teachers or not.
Maybe with caution. Because like your story was funny, you know what I mean? And my story was weird, but you know, like, I don't know.
If you have an interesting story, because see, it's weird, you know. Okay, so my stories are from mid '80s. Okay, when you heard rumors, but they, you know, it wasn't really. I guess this one wasn't really out in public either. They had to find out, and then they had to find evidence and then arrest them.
Well, see, the difference between like you were the '80s, I was the '90s. The difference is we didn't have social media.
True.
So
True.
You know what I mean. So if you think about like what you and your buddies would do, or me and my buddies would do, it was between us.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't until Jackass came along we realized, oh, hey, you can make money doing this stuff, like filming it and putting it out there, you know? Nowadays, there's social media, and that guy, it said in the story, he shared it to a bunch of social media sites.
Well, yeah.
So that's why a lot of these people are getting caught nowadays, is because they're stupid and put it on social media. I mean, they're stupid anyways.
I think it's easy these days for anybody to get caught. I think for kids at a party to get caught drinking, you know, and get expelled from sports and extracurricular activities.
My daughter, after she graduated high school, before she left for college, that Snapchat, I think it's called, shared a snap picture, and it's her and her friend, and her friend's holding a beer. But what they did is they tried to censor the beer, and here's how they censored it: a big black line over the can. So she gets home, and I'm like, how was the party? And she's like, it was great. I'm like, you were safe? She's like, yeah. I go, was it Coors Light or Miller Lite? She goes, what are you talking about? I said, the drink you were drinking. A big black line just draws attention to it. It was a White Claw. I go, I don't know what I'm more mad at you for.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like,
yeah. If that was a Coke, you wouldn't be drawing a big black line over it.
Well, you know, and I know she's gonna drink. We all, you know, and she's safe. And I have this thing with my kids where, when they were all underage, if you even now, if you get too drunk, don't call me. I will come get you. I will get you home safely. We won't discuss it until you're sober, and then we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. But first and foremost, your safety is important.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be a statistic. I don't want some other family to be affected because you make a bad decision while you're drunk.
Right.
You know. So I had that open dialogue with them.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And of course, that's good that open dialogue was there because
that's what my parents had with me, but I didn't share pictures with big black lines over what we were drinking.
That's just not smart at all. I mean, it's not hard to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
At all. 3 stories left here on Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. It's kind of appropriate to jump into. A Vermont dad allegedly tries attacking troopers with an excavator to prevent his son's arrest.
Oh, okay.
Of all the weapons you would use, an excavator is probably one of the slowest and probably stupidest weapons you would use.
There was that guy back a few years ago that built his excavator to be like a tank, where he put sheet metal and metal all around it, and he drove it downtown to smash through all the government buildings, and they couldn't get to him because he had fortified it. I'm assuming this guy didn't go that far.
I don't think he did, no. A 52-year-old man is accused of using a piece of construction equipment as a means of preventing his son from getting arrested. According to Vermont State Police, on June 14th at 7 p.m., troopers were investigating a suspected aggravated assault and burglary and located the suspect on Scott Road in Hardwick. As they prepared to arrest the man, Wayne and Amy Tallman allegedly began to impede troopers. The statement alleges Wayne proceeded to operate an excavator and recklessly maneuver the bucket near the troopers and their cruisers in an attempt to prevent them from arresting the suspect. The Vermont State Police released dashcam video footage from the incident, which shows the 2 troopers restraining the suspect. A woman also runs in the middle of the scuffle while the excavator makes its way closer to the cars. Wayne Tallman was eventually arrested for aggravated assault on a protected official, resisting arrest, impeding, and reckless endangerment. Amy Tallman received a citation for impeding an officer. Vermont State Police said one commander noted, "They don't have a scenario at the academy where we practice this one."
No, I don't think they do. I picture that scene in Austin Powers where the guy's driving the roller really slow and he's like, no! Oh, but it's slowly approaching him.
Yes. Yeah. One of the more obvious the worst scenarios.
The trooper gets home. The wife, how was your day? Got into a fight with an excavator. How was yours?
Yeah. Guess who won, though? It's one of those David and Goliath scenarios where David's probably going to pull this one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, just saying. 2 stories left here. This one, Bruiser, we've all made good wardrobe choices in the morning and kind of look at ourselves in the mirror and go, hey, that's pretty sharp.
Yeah.
And then say, you know what? I've made an ironic wardrobe choice today in that the shirt I'm wearing really does reflect the day I'm having.
Okay.
And then we've made wardrobe choices where we go, maybe I shouldn't have wore that shirt today because it's making everyone laugh at me today.
Okay.
This drug defendant made a terrible wardrobe choice. A meth suspect was nabbed wearing a "I'm too good for drugs" t-shirt. Yeah. Of course,
Good for him.
We go to Alabama for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where an Alabama man was wearing a t-shirt proclaiming, "I'm too good for drugs." Of course he was. I got to show you this guy's picture too. It's too good. He was arrested for possessing methamphetamine and narcotics paraphernalia. 60-year-old Alan Burnett.
60 years old.
He might be trying to catch up to his childhood too much. Was collared last Thursday night near his home in Asheville, a small city about 45 miles from Birmingham. Burnett was charged with a pair of drug counts and booked into the St. Clair County Jail. He was released early. Yes, or it says here yesterday morning, but this was probably 2 or 3 days ago. After posting $3,500 bond. At the time of the arrest, Burnett was wearing a purple T-shirt. Well, at least it was a good color that declared, "I'm too good for drugs," with an exclamation point. And a very royal and regal font for "too good."
Oh.
Yeah. It looks very Liberace-ish. Previously, defendants have been busted while wearing shirts announcing, "I love crystal meth," and "Who needs drugs? No, seriously, I have drugs." And an Illinois man who was arrested for allegedly possessing the makings of a methamphetamine lab was nabbed while wearing Los Pollos Hermanos t-shirts. The fictional chain of fried chicken restaurants was a front operated by meth kingpin Gus Fring in the TV series Breaking Bad. I'm just going to show Bruiser this because I can't share it with the world, but here's your 60-year-old that was wearing the
you're right. It is a very regal.
Yeah, isn't it, though? It has that little Liberace script with the "too good."
He doesn't look like your typical meth dealer, though.
He doesn't, does he? But he's not smiling, so you can't count the teeth.
That's true. But his skin looks real healthy. He's got weight, obviously.
Yes.
I mean, he's got a big beer belly.
Yeah, he's still retaining weight, and his skin looks pretty healthy. All the hair is there, so.
Yeah.
He still has a good look to him. I think
someone's going through a late life crisis.
It is. It's kind of it's a cry for help is what it is.
Yeah.
That's what we know it.
He bought the shirt as a joke. You know he did.
Well, he might have put it on in the we call it self-sabotage in the counseling world.
Okay.
Maybe it's his second or third time going out for the meth.
Okay.
So he's like, okay, I'm going to put the shirt on just in case I get nabbed.
Yeah. Just let him know.
Yeah.
I'm too good for drugs.
Right. Or I'm too good for drugs. You know what I'm saying? Just to let the officers know, hey, I have a sense of humor. Hey, maybe I don't do this on a regular basis. And hey, we can have a good laugh while we do this arrest.
Or maybe the back of the shirt says, the front says, "I'm too good for drugs." And on the back it says, "Unless the drugs are good."
Ah, see? They never said if there is a back script to the
See? Yeah.
And finally today on Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals, according to cops, a woman naked from the waist down claims that snakes ate her pants.
That's original.
Hey.
You had to get away quickly.
Yeah,
Take the pants off.
How are you going to argue with it?
You can't. You can't prove it.
No, you can't. We go to Pennsylvania. I don't know why we're centered on Pennsylvania this week.
I was going to say, there's only one Florida story, huh?
It's two, I think, two.
Two, okay, two. But then we have, this is like the second or third Pennsylvania story.
If I pound on the counter again, will Flash Gordon play? Should I
hope
see?
so.
Let's see. Did it do it again?
Nope, nothing. Nope, nothing.
No, okay. A woman found naked from the waist down told Pennsylvania police that snakes had eaten her pants, according to a court filing. Responding last Thursday afternoon to multiple 911 calls about a half-dressed woman walking in the middle of a road about 25 miles from Philadelphia. Why does that not surprise me?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Cops found 35-year-old Gloria Harple naked from the waist down, and she was rambling. Yeah, that sounds like Philadelphia.
Yep, that's 100% Philadelphia.
Yeah. Harple, who police suspected of narcotics use, initially said that she had put her pants in a storm drain before contending that snakes had eaten them. I have a picture.
She doesn't even cover why she put them in a storm drain. She just, I put them in a storm drain, and then these snakes ate them. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, maybe they were made of mice. I don't know.
You know, snakes on a plane. Snakes ate my pants. Same thing.
It's the new Samuel L. Jackson sequel. Harple, who was reportedly sweating profusely and making nonsensical outbursts, was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and public drunkenness. She was booked into the Montgomery County Jail on the misdemeanor counts. A probable cause affidavit does not provide a further description of the purported trouser snakes. That's what they're calling the offenders, trouser snakes. Here's a picture of Miss Harple, if you want to take a look at her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She wearing a dress?
I think that's a leotard, actually.
Or is that just, okay. Yeah.
Accosted by Trouser Snakes is the new movie from Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep.
It'll be out in theaters next summer.
Snakes on these effing trousers.
Yep. Those mother effing snakes at my mother effing trousers will be the new. I believe I have Samuel's stuff. Hey, Samuel, have snakes ever eaten your trousers? He's thinking about it. He's not answering.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried then if he's not answering really quick. If he has to think about it.
Hey, Samuel, will snakes eat your pants?
Here's something I found on the web. According to thealternativedaily.com, the ankle is a favorite strike place of snakes, so pants tucked into your boots will protect you from this and other unsavory encounters, including poison ivy / oak, ticks, briars, and chiggers.
What? He always said chiggers. That's what he said.
Don't walk that line, Tim.
Hey, Samuel, tell me a dirty joke.
Want to hear a dirty joke? Boy fell in a pile of shit. How about the clean version? He took a shower.
There you go. That's how we'll end Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals today.
Yes.
There you go. So you got your Samuel L. Jackson fix for today.
Well, you have to if you're talking about pants and planes or pants and snakes.
That's right. That'll do it, Bruiser. We've got supernatural news tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we've got that. We've got that to cover tomorrow. In case we need to remind you one more time, the book that you should be looking for from our author Leslie Ghiglieri is available by Wild Blue Press. It is called "The Decision to Kill: A True Crime Story of a Teenage Killer and the Mother Who Loved Him." Leslie Ghiglieri is our guest who appeared with us today. It's available at wildbluepress.com, also available at amazon.com and barnesandnoble.com. There's a link in the description of this program. That's what I meant to say. It's available for you right now, so you can click on that link. And again, a portion of the proceeds of that book go to charity for drug and alcohol abuse. Or preventing drug and alcohol abuse, not if you're abusing drugs and alcohol, but for prevention of drug and alcohol abuse. I think that'll do it, Bruiser.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
We will see you tomorrow for Supernatural News right here on Darkness Radio. Thank you very much for tuning in to the best in true crime podcasting. This has been True Crime Tuesday.